Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1281 of the War News stream. And we got some crazy news today that a massive NATO search is underway for a Russian attack submarine after a threat in a U.S. Navy ship. Also, Russia struck the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone right near the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. And also, Crimea has been sieged by Ukrainian attack drones, and we have massive damage happening in Crimea and massive news. And it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear that a Russian nuclear attack submarine has threatened the USS Gerald R carrier strike group under 6th Fleet Command. That occurred on Sunday, and we have now been able to hear, made public, that this Russian submarine not only radio broadcast a direct imminent threat to the USS Gerald R strike group, but immediately descended below the thermal layer in the area of the Norwegian Sea, practically making it impervious to sonar detection and pretty much making the submarine disappear. For the past several days, we've been able to hear that the United States 6th Fleet has disposed all naval assets possible into the area to try and detect this submarine, but it does not appear that any success has been made so far. Nevertheless, this appears to be another direct provocation by the Russian armed forces against a significant NATO asset, and not only that, the largest and most powerful aircraft carrier on the world, well, in the world at large. We have also been able to hear at the same time that just a few hours ago, the Russian Federation landed 3 ballistic missiles within the area of the village of Pripyat, just a few miles away from the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant sarcophagus, which is housing the remnants of Chernobyl reactor number 4, which suffered a critical meltdown in 1986. This appears to be a direct threat by the Russian Federation that they may hit and destroy the sarcophagus over the Chernobyl reactor number 4, possibly releasing a deadly amount of radiation into the surrounding areas of southern Belarus and Ukraine at large. This is coming simultaneously as Ukrainian armed forces have conducted a massive drone attack against Crimea earlier today, hitting a large amount of targets within the the region, and have also been able to hit the Samara refinery, another significant refinery inside the Russian Federation that is vital for the production of usable fuel products that keep the Russian Federation's economy and war machine operational. Not only that, we have also been able to hear in other major news that Israeli armed forces have conducted significant ground raids today within the area of southern Syria, with a large amount of Israeli Defense Force helicopters being heard within the area, and rumors are now circulating that the Israeli armed forces were able to capture a high-level Iranian official alive within the area, although we have not been able to corroborate that rumor at this moment. We have also been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now directly stating that Israel is to blame for the Rajai port explosion that occurred several months ago, and we have also been able to hear that apparently the three largest countries within the European area, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, are soon to announce tomorrow that the Islamic Republic of Iran is in violation of the JCPOA agreement, which stated that the Islamic Republic of Iran would not enrich uranium to a certain grade or attempt to use that for weapons purposes. We have also been able to hear in other news that the Republic of India is continuing to waffle on their oil purchases or imports from the Russian Federation, while other significant news has continued to occur around the area of South America, as we are seeing the additional deployment of Sentry aircraft and reconnaissance aircraft around the area, most likely in preparations for some possible military activities that may be conducted against the illegitimate Venezuelan government. We have a load of news to cover over the course of the night, and I've actually got to be honest with y'all, within the past few hours, loads of news has come out that is quite literally breaking to every single degree. Tonight is actually a major news night, all things considered, and we're going to be making sure to get y'all into all of those top stories and all of the other top stories that we have over the course of the night in as much detail as we can. And that is going to be moving us immediately into the area of the southern Norwegian Sea, getting incredibly close to bordering the area around the North Sea. We have been able to hear that near to the area of the Shetland Islands, there appears to have been a direct and imminent threat posed to the USS Gerald R. Ford's carrier strike group, which is currently under the command of US 6th Fleet, which is based out of an operational facility within Naples, Italy. This carrier strike group is one of the most advanced and potent that has been seen in the world so far, using the brand new USS Gerald R. Ford class nuclear-powered submarine. This is a very potent carrier strike group. It is, once again, the most advanced in the world. Here's a picture of the USS Gerald R. Ford, which operates a fleet of FA-18 Super Hornets and is soon to be operating F-35 Lightnings as well as a part of the U.S. Navy's Air Wing Detachment and Air Arm on board the carrier. This carrier was currently steaming at least several days ago near to the area of the southern Norwegian Sea when apparently a Russian Akula-class attack submarine, pictured here, broadcast some sort of a radio threat that they were going to imminently attack and destroy the carrier and the carrier strike group, and then immediately dove below the thermal layer. To quickly describe what this is, or what was largely going on, at least at that moment, from what we've been able to extrapolate from all of the news coming out today, the USS Gerald R. Ford was sailing through the area, most likely at a lower level of alert, so not conducting anti-submarine warfare or anti-submarine detection, at least at the time, which allowed for the submarine to close in at an incredibly close range, most likely less than a couple of dozen miles away from the carrier strike group, meaning that technically at that moment, this Akula-class submarine was within strike range. Modern attack submarines like the Akula class, even those that are largely considered antiquated under Russian service, are capable of firing an array of torpedoes or some anti-ship missiles from their torpedo silos or torpedo tubes at the direct bow of the sub. This is a severe threat, especially for a submarine to get that close to an area of an aircraft carrier, as it can fire off an overwhelming volley of these anti-ship missiles, which would immediately pierce through the sea level and then activate its rockets, and then fly as quickly as it can through the aircraft carrier strike group, and then strike directly into the aircraft carrier, possibly delivering a crippling or deadly blow to the USS Gerald R. Ford. When this radio transmission was sent in, apparently the carrier strike group went to full alert, and we were then able to hear that apparently the submarine disappeared. If the submarine disappeared, there is only one thing that could have happened, and this requires me to explain a little bit of detail about what generally exists within these areas of the sea further on up north. In the more extreme north and southern regions, or the more extreme parts of the northern and southern hemispheres, there's something fairly interesting that occurs at all times of year, which is called a thermal layer. Imagine that much like oil and vinegar inside of a tube where they separate each other, the temperature of the ocean actually changes greatly at certain depths and certain salinity contents within these areas of the world's oceans, like the Norwegian Sea. Within this area, after several hundred feet of the ocean, the temperature pretty much does a complete sudden change along with the salinity, meaning that sonars are not able to actually penetrate beyond that layer, and the sonar pings largely bounce off of that thermal layer, meaning that they're not able to see anything below that thermal layer unless if you dropped a sonar below the thermal layer, which is pretty difficult for most warships to do. For this reason, this submarine apparently went directly below the thermal layer after broadcasting this threat, and has since Sunday, largely disappeared to the carrier strike group and has not been found. We have been able to see clear proof that the carrier strike group is continuing to attempt to find the submarine, as we were able to see a Hawkeye, most likely deployed from the Gerald R Ford, continuing to conduct orbits around the area of the Shetland Islands, most likely trying to find some way to drop a sonar buoy that might be able to detect the submarine somewhere within the area. To quickly explain how this sort of a submarine detection system works, it largely relies on these, which are called sonar buoys. Sonar buoys can be dropped from helicopters or aircraft that have been specially outfitted to be able to drop these sorts of sonar buoys into the water. You generally lay these out in a zigzag search pattern. That's generally what is standard procedure, and through that you're able to detect really any sort of sound, which is what sonars, at least these are trying to detect, any sort of sound or even a ping. Some of these actually do send out sonar pings as well, to be able to try and pick up the submarine. That's only if it's above the thermal layer, as these sonar buoys and their actual active and passive sonar systems only extend several hundred feet down into the water, meaning that it may not be able to penetrate the thermal layer that the submarine is currently hiding under. However, that's what we're understanding that this E-2 Hawkeye is most likely a part of, is trying to be a JTAC aircraft to be able to command and coordinate the P-3 Orions and other helicopters that are within the area that are most likely laying out these sonar buoys. But at the moment, the U.S. Department of Defense, nor the NATO task force that has been deployed at this moment into the area, has stated that they have found the submarine or even know of its whereabouts, largely meaning that the submarine is pretty much slipping through the cracks at this moment, and nobody has been able to find it after it issued this threat to the U.S. aircraft carrier and its strike group. This is a fairly...
And also the crazy part is, this has been going on since Sunday, we were told. Late Sunday evenings when this whole situation started, and it's obviously now Wednesday night. So it's been multiple days, at least 48 to 72 hours, I would say, that it's been in time. So if they haven't found it yet, I'm not sure if the odds of actually being able to find that Russian sub is very high at this point. It seems like it would probably have gotten away or gotten completely out of the area since it's gone back down below the thermal layer. It seems like it's had plenty of time to get out. So I'm not sure what the odds are they're going to be able to find this thing. It seems pretty low.
It seems like it is fairly low, and I also want to explain a couple of other things that went into our analysis about what's going on in the area. First off, there are 2 attack class submarines that are under the command of the Northern Fleet, which is charged with the responsibility of projecting power into the area of the Norwegian Sea. That is the Akula-class submarine seen here, and the Kilo-class submarine, which I'll quickly pull up for all of y'all, which is a diesel-electric submarine that the Russians have started to implement in larger numbers recently as something of a cost-cutting measure, but also keeping some sort of competent submarine fleet at sea. Diesel-electric submarines do have an issue. Diesel-electric submarines, like the Kilo, have to conduct what's called snorkeling, which means that every several days, the battery power that the submarine runs off of runs out, and the only way to recharge those batteries is to turn on the diesel engines inside of the sub. To operate the diesels, however, that requires a lot of oxygen. So this submarine will have to at least get close to the surface to be able to conduct its snorkeling and allow for its engines to be turned on and recharge its batteries. Considering that this occurred on Sunday, and we generally assume that a Kilo-class submarine can stay underwater for about 72 to 108 hours without snorkeling, that means that at this moment, this NATO task force would have found the submarine if it was a Kilo-class because it would have to conduct a snorkeling operation at this moment to be able to recharge its batteries. That has not happened. The only other option that we have, considering that attack submarines would be the one to conduct this sort of provocative action, is that it's the second class of attack submarine in the Northern Fleet, which is the Akula class. The only thing that keeps a nuclear submarine from being under the ocean's lair indefinitely is the fact that it has a crew on board that has to eat. And that is the only thing that limits this vessel from staying underwater on a permanent basis. For that reason, we would highly assume that at this point it's an Akula class submarine, as there's been no indication that the submarine, whichever one transmitted the threat, has ever ascended back above the thermal layer, and that means that it dove, and for days now it's still down there, and apparently incredibly comfortable at that sort of a depth. With that in mind, it most likely is an Akula class nuclear-powered attack submarine, and it most likely has already left the area at this point. Once a submarine passes the thermal layer, also this is another important thing to add as well, there really isn't a way to pick it up either on active or passive sonar, and to describe the difference between the two, an active sonar is the one that you've all heard about in the movies, the one that puts out that little bing sound. They don't really do that in real life. The sound's incredibly different. But outside of that, that is an active sonar. What that does, it sends a pulse through the water, much like a radar would through the air, and if it bounces off of anything, it reports that back to the vessel that had the active sonar, and it says that's where the submarine is. That's generally how that works. On the other hand, a passive sonar is pretty much in some form of an aquaphone or something similar. It really just picks up noise inside the water, and generally those are advanced enough nowadays that it can actually triangulate where a submarine is just by picking up the sound. And it also requires certain kinds of technicians to be able to operate that machinery and also help it to be able to find where the submarine is. It's a little bit of an advanced process. But nevertheless, once a submarine goes below a thermal layer, that also means that sound travels very differently through the water in between those two different thermal layers, meaning that this submarine at this moment could be going possibly at full speed. Akula class submarines are known to be able to pick up a great deal of speed, and generally in some, at least prior statements, they have been able to keep up speed with U.S. destroyers even while submerged, meaning that this thing could be cavitating at the moment under the thermal layer, which would be undetectable to passive and active sonar, and it could have cleared out of the area immediately, meaning that the search operation is looking for a submarine that has already gotten pretty much the hell out of Dodge and may be further north in the Norwegian Sea, or may even be somewhere around the area of the strait or the passage that exists between Iceland and Greenland, or the United Kingdom and Iceland, which is also considered a large area that Russian submarines could attempt to break out into the North Atlantic. So we have absolutely no clue where the submarine is at the moment, and to be entirely honest with y'all, it's highly unlikely that the Sixth Fleet will ever most likely find the submarine, as it's most likely already slipped away and has made it out into the broader open seas. Nevertheless, it does appear that the Russian Federation is making incredibly clear provocative actions, and not only that, against America's most advanced and expensive aircraft carrier that is currently in operation anywhere in the world. And a lot of people have wondered, why in the world would a Russian submarine commander make such a threatening action to a U.S. carrier strike group, which is about the most sort of threatening action that could be made in the naval sense, and then try and immediately disappear. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like 76% of the audience said Russia is trying to test the U.S. naval response by threatening the U.S. aircraft carrier and then scurrying away and then looking and seeing what's happening after the fact, while 10% said it seems very vague, we need some more details, and 8% said the U.S. is using this as a test exercise. And right now, the details are vague. We have to admit that on our side, the details are very, very vague. But we have heard that apparently a Russian sub, like we mentioned, did surface or at least come close to an aircraft carrier, which is the Gerald R in the Norwegian Sea. And allegedly, it's believed that they issued a threat toward the aircraft carrier. Then they went down below the water, took off, and they disappeared. That's right now, this is what we know, and that's the story. And that's kind of what we got to run with. And so far, it's being reported on multiple different Norwegian media outlets, and obviously it's been happening since Sunday, so it's been going on for quite some time. But what is the audience thinking about that? And 76% believe that Russia was testing the U.S. naval response. I would say that's probably the case. They're trying to go and issue the threat, if that was indeed the case, and that did indeed happen. They're trying to see what the U.S. Navy, the Air Force, etc. is going to do if they were threatened. They're trying to see where all these different assets are being launched and deployed from to go after the sub. So that way they can determine how to defend against that in the future. So to me, it seems pretty clear. I'm in the majority here. I think that's what they're trying to do. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm clearly within the majority as well. I would have to say that the Russians are testing U.S. naval responses, and I'd also like to make it a little bit clear to folks that these sorts of actions are not to be taken lightly. I don't know what it is with people these days and taking serious action, saying, oh, well, it's not that much of a thing. It's kind of like how someone can rob a gas station, and then everyone goes, he didn't do nothing. It's like, well, he robbed a gas station with a gun. It's kind of something, it's not really that hard to see that. This is a fairly major ordeal. That's the reason why there's a NATO-wide manhunt going on for the submarine, because it's not exactly a little deal, and the Russians weren't really just trolling. There's 3,000 men on board that aircraft carrier, and there's hundreds others on every single destroyer and missile cruiser that was in that carrier strike group that came under an imminent threat from a Russian torpedo or anti-ship missile attack, because that submarine came so close to the fleet and then immediately radioed its intentions that it may actually attack and destroy the carrier strike group, sending them into high alert, and then immediately disappeared to keep them on high alert for days, which is what we've now heard. And not only that, as a consequence, that carrier strike group then forwarded that information to the British, the Norwegians, and multiple other fleets around the area, and they have also dispatched as many naval resources as possible as well, aircraft and ship, to be able to try and track down and find the submarine that issued the threat, so that way they know where it is, to keep an eye on it, and to ensure that it will not attack the carrier strike group that's in the area. All of that isn't something that you do if someone's just simply trolling or posturing. This is something that is trying to test the response of NATO, and to also see how close they could end up getting to that carrier. And considering that they sent that message, apparently they got as close as they needed to, and they now were perfectly fine with telling the carrier, we got close enough to pretty much kill everyone in the carrier strike group, and you didn't even detect us in the meantime. That is something that is incredibly concerning.
And also what's interesting as well, since this has been happening since Sunday, this has been kept quiet for several days now. The only reason this has made the headlines in Norway is because the massive NATO deployments of aircraft, ships, etc. that's searching for the Russian sub caught the attention of the media outlets. That's what caught their attention. There's been no official statement from NATO, no official statement from any of the authorities involved in this. Right now, it's still quiet. So the media is reporting on it because they saw it on Flight Radar 24, etc., and also these ships going out to check it out. But right now, the authorities are silent. They're not really saying anything about this, which is a little bit odd, since there's obviously a massive, unusual search operation underway for the sub. So I'll be curious to see that now that this has gotten headline attention, will they come out and finally say something about it and clarify the details?
And really quickly, I do want to say this as well. I see some people saying, oh, well, I'm sure there's a submarine we have tracking that sub. That is incredibly rare. In the movies, that happens a lot, and it leads people to believe that that's a very normal thing to occur. But submarines do not track other submarines. It is incredibly rare for that sort of a thing to happen. And also, before someone says, well, I'm sure they have one of those nuclear submarines that was deployed to the area tracking it. No, absolutely not. Ballistic missile submarines are pretty much kept as far away from everyone as possible. They're never supposed to be seen. They're never supposed to be heard. They're never even supposed to be close to being detected. They are to hide in place until they get to order to nuke the Russians, and then they nuke the Russians. That's what a ballistic missile submarine does. The only submarines that we could have in the area that would take under the task of tracking down the submarine and trying to find it would either be the Los Angeles class attack submarines, which are some of the most commonly active attack submarines in the fleet, or this one, which is literally quite truly a unicorn in the American sense, which is the Seawolf class attack submarine. Both of these, at least according to the publicized speeds, might not actually be able to keep up with an Akula. An Akula is a fairly fast attack submarine, and this is one thing that the Russians actually specialized in, because during the Cold War, it was understood that the Soviets would never be able to match the U.S. Navy in terms of surface warship abilities or air-to-air abilities at sea, so the Russians went heavily into researching and developing the most advanced submarines, at least in terms of speed, that they could make. This is one of them. This is one of the fastest attack submarines that has ever been in service in the world. This thing actually has enough speed when submerged to be able to outspeed U.S. destroyers that are attempting to chase it down. So the issue there is that this thing could be well gone at this point, and there's really no way to track it down. So even if a submarine was around the area, the chances of it being able to track that Russian submarine is highly unlikely, and if that was the case, we wouldn't see that an entire NATO surface fleet, including the Sixth Fleet, would be trying to conduct a search operation to find the submarine, because they already would have found it, and there would be no reason for the entirety of the search.
And also, this doesn't happen often, by the way. I saw some people trying to say earlier on Twitter that this happens quite often. I have never heard of a Russian submarine threatening a U.S. Navy vessel and then scurrying away and running off like a coward. I've never personally heard of that. I think this is the first time this has happened in modern history. So, if this turns out to be confirmed by the authorities that this did indeed happen, as being reported by the media outlets, this is a wild action on the part of Russia. This is something here which is a huge escalation, because you can't just come up with a submarine, threaten a U.S. naval carrier, and then run off and expect something not to happen, because you're threatening one of our most potent forces in the Navy at that point. So, I would personally take that seriously if it were me.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a fairly serious sort of an issue, and it does appear that it's ended up evolving into an incredibly serious one, because the entirety of all naval forces in NATO within the Norwegian Sea and North Sea area are currently out underway at the moment, trying to find the submarine that threatened the strike group. So certainly not a minor situation. This is a major situation that's occurred, and it's finally been released to the public days after it first happened, and days after the search began. So with that in mind, I hope that addresses that situation at least the best we can at the moment, with all the information that we have. And I also want to say really quickly, folks, a couple of disclaimers. Based off of our analysis, it is most likely an Akula-class submarine. That has not been published directly by any military source, such as the Department of Defense or any sort of NATO command. It's just generally assumed, based on the facts we have available, that it would be an Akula-class attack submarine and not a Kilo-class attack submarine. Also, on top of that, we are assuming that it's generally fled the area, because we're also not hearing that they have had any progress in finding and tracking the submarine. If they did, the aerial manhunt would be over by now, and it would have been over days ago, because they would most likely have a destroyer or an aircraft quite literally just hanging out on top of it and dropping a buoy onto it. A helicopter at that point would most likely just fly out there and literally drop a buoy, well, pretty much a dip into the water, and just keep watching it. So if any of that was the case, they would have found it by now. None of that is the case. They have not found it, and that's what we're going off of. Generally, I'm not...
And also, I see someone in the live chat here, Charm, asking a pretty good question. They're saying, so if they track down the Russian submarine and they find it, what would be the next step? I think the sole reason of tracking it down is to simply know the location of it and track it from there forward. I don't think there's really anything that NATO could do to the submarine, because obviously they can't attack the submarine. That would be a declaration of war on Russia. They really can't force it to surface either. That's also something they can't force it to do. So I think basically the end goal is to figure out where this enemy sub went, because obviously it just threatened a U.S. Navy vessel. So that's a clear threat. They're trying to make sure it's not going towards something sensitive. That would be the reason for tracking it. But Enforcer, is there anything they could really do to the sub if they found it, located it, and then contacted the sub?
There isn't really anything that they could do in particular to the sub. The reason why they need to find it is because, considering that right now they have no clue where it is a major threat, because they don't know where it is, or if it fires at them, what direction it's firing at them from, or how close it is. So all that is incredibly important as far as fleet security, or at least for that strike group security. So the whole purpose of finding the submarine is so that way they can hover a helicopter right over the thing, drop a sonar dip on top of it, and just watch it. The sonar dip would provide information directly back to the carrier strike group about where the submarine is, what direction it's traveling, at what speed, hopefully at what depth if it's not below the thermal layer, and also if it fires off any sort of an anti-ship missile or a torpedo, that information would also be relayed, because that would be picked up on a passive sonar. Generally, at least in the past, I cannot tell you what sort of a system would be used in the modern day, but back in the day, they would generally deploy a helicopter with what's called a sonar dip and do what's called dipping. This is where they drop the thing in the water right above the sub, if they find it, and they just sit there, and they just let that hydrophone pretty much pick up the sounds of the submarine, and off of that, the technicians on board this helicopter are able to say exactly what direction it's heading in, how fast it's going, how fast it's cavitating, which tells you how fast it's going, and also if any sort of weaponry is fired out of it. Really quickly to explain this as well, the helicopters can never be destroyed by a submarine. This is one of the massive failings of a sub, is that they have absolutely no ground-to-air capabilities, so they cannot shoot down any aircraft. So this helicopter can literally sit on top of it for an indefinite period of time and just listen to it and know where it's heading. And that generally would give the carrier strike group a lot of knowledge to be able to know how to react to the situation if they needed to, and also if any weaponry was fired at them, so that way they could react to it. That way they can set up the formation of the strike group to have more destroyers towards the side with the sub on it, so that way they have more air defense in that direction, or also anything else that would be needed to try and veer off any torpedoes, such as decoy noise or noisemakers in the water that also would be necessary if that sub fired a torpedo at the carrier strike group. So all of it's really more so security based than offensively based at this point.
Interesting. That would be fascinating. I'll just be honest. This is such a wild story right here. I'm personally waiting for the authorities to make a comment on it because now they're going to have to address it. Now that it's become a huge media headline, they're going to have to say something about it. And they can't deny that nothing's happening because obviously you don't deploy all these aircraft, these ships, etc., unless you have a serious situation on your hands. So my big question is this: what exactly was the threat that was issued from the Russian sub to the U.S. Aircraft carrier? How severe was the threat? Was it literally we're going to torpedo your vessel, or was it something like we're watching you and then ominously swam away in the submarine or something like that? Like, that's my question. How serious was the threat? Because right now we simply don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know. That's also another thing, folks. We have no clue what threat was issued. We're assuming that it had to have been a wildly serious one for this kind of a response from NATO, but it had to have been quite serious. But we don't know the exact details of what they said. All we know is that they apparently threatened the carrier strike group, according to the press release, and then everyone's on top of this thing like white on rice trying to find it. So we actually don't know what they said, where the submarine is. All we know is that a threat was issued and the sub immediately disappeared, went below the thermal layer, and now it's undetectable. Also, really quickly, a whole bunch of other things are being said by folks, like how in the like anti-submarine warfare is actually a whole type of warfare in and of itself, completely different than most surface warfare operations. Generally, aircraft like a P-3 Orion, and let me go show you all one of these, is actually an anti-submarine aircraft, generally by design. These are designed to be able to drop torpedoes in the water right on top of these submarines. The torpedoes are self-homing and are able to detect, pick up, and then immediately go straight for the sub. So if this submarine was far enough away and it fired an anti-ship missile at the carrier strike group, but it wasn't technically within range of the anti-submarine capabilities of the Arleigh class destroyers or the Ticonderoga or the aircraft carrier itself, they could technically send out aircraft like an Orion to just literally start dropping torpedoes on top of the thing and depth charges and see if they can blast it to Kingdom Come that way. So there's some ways to be able to counter a submarine at all distances. It's just that sometimes you can't really do it with surface vessels alone. And also, submarine on submarine action is literally unheard of. Do not count on a U.S. submarine torpedoing a Russian submarine. Chances of that are slim to none. I don't believe that's ever actually happened in combat.
So it's not the hunt for Red October, I guess you could say.
Not really. Like in real life, it's more so
Okay.
it's more so completely different than what they portrayed in the Hunt for Red October. But with that, I hope that does address that story the best we can, at least with what we have at the moment. But moving on directly into another major story, we have also been able to hear simultaneously just several hours ago that 3 Russian ballistic missiles have actually struck the abandoned city of Pripyat within the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. All 3 of them flying largely in a formation and striking the abandoned city within seconds of each other. This was only a few kilometers away from the Chernobyl sarcophagus, which still sits on top of Chernobyl reactor number 4, which suffered a critical meltdown in 1986 and is considered to be incredibly dangerous if it was not for the sarcophagus, which was blocking most of the radioactivity from reaching the outside world or the Chernobyl exclusion zone at large. This is something that happened literally right before we went on air just a couple of hours ago, and it does appear that this is some sort of a signal by the Russian Federation or a direct threat of puncturing and destroying the Chernobyl reactor sarcophagus, which currently sits on top of reactor number 4. This is something that happened, by the way, about the same time that the news started to come out that the carrier strike group of the Gerald R. Ford under 6th Fleet was directly threatened by some sort of a Russian submarine once that press release came out today. So it appears that not only is the Russian Federation attempting to threaten the United States and NATO at large at sea, they are also threatening the ecological security of the state of Ukraine by largely showing that they will hit the Chernobyl exclusion area with direct weaponry. And not only that, wildly close to the Chernobyl sarcophagus. It wasn't that long ago that the Russians actually hit the Chernobyl sarcophagus with a Shahed 136 drone, blasting a several meter wide hole in the side of the sarcophagus, which nearly leaked radiation in the surrounding area. But from what we were able to hear from the Ukrainian authorities, the radiation leakage was incredibly light, and we also were able to see that repairs were immediately effected on the sarcophagus to ensure that there was no long-term radiation leakage into the surrounding area. So it also appears that the Russian Federation has conducted a threat on this level. This is something I think a lot of y'all know is pretty dangerous. To also put this out there, If this missile did happen to start a fire within Pripyat, this fire could spread into the Red Forest, which is directly
Ooh.
south of the town, and that area is still so radioactive that it's actually largely believed in a great concern of scientists that if this forest ever caught on fire, it would release a great deal of radioactivity that would actually be on par with Chernobyl reactor number 4's meltdown that happened in 1986. So the radiation spread would be significant and devastating the surrounding area, wherever the prevailing winds took the ashes of that fire, which the ashes would be radioactive.
Yeah, that would be terrible. Also, just merely the fact that the missiles are hitting close to this area where there's clearly still radioactive contamination on the ground, even if it doesn't start a wildfire that rips through the Red Forest, which would be probably the worst case scenario because it puts all that radioactive contamination right into the air, and obviously it's going to float toward populated areas, so that's not good. But also, the mere fact the missiles are hitting here, it's also kicking up that radioactive dust into the air anyway. Granted, it's in much smaller amounts than what the Red Forest would cause, but that is extremely risky. Also, there's nothing here in Pripyat. Like, there are no military targets I'm aware of that are in Pripyat. It's an abandoned town near Chernobyl. This place has been a ghost town for ages, ever since the Chernobyl disaster, and there's nothing here as far as I'm aware. So, Enforcer, is there any active Ukrainian units here at present? Because not that I'm aware of.
Some territorial defense forces have used Pripyat as a training ground, but that's incredibly intermittently. There's no permanent facility of the Ukrainian armed forces or any sort of state apparatus that exists inside of Pripyat. The only permanent inhabitants by humans, it's still temporary, and it's only around the area of the sarcophagus itself and the old Chernobyl nuclear power plant to ensure that everything is still remaining stable within the area and to keep some sort of stasis so that way some situation doesn't devolve that ends up degrading the situation at the power plant still. So there are some people around the actual power plant, but there isn't anyone inside of Pripyat on a permanent basis, and not only that, there's nothing that would require being hit by several ballistic missiles inside of Pripyat from what we would be able to know. The only thing that's around this area that would be considered, I guess you could say, a state apparatus would be the border guards, but they're directly along the border at specific checkpoints, like, for example, this road, not inside of Pripyat. And generally, from what we understand, they just drive straight through the zone and ride out to an area like Ivankiv to stay in a barracks or anything like that. So they're not even inside the exclusion zone on a permanent basis. So this whole thing seems to be a threat that the Russians might actually move those missiles a couple of kilometers south next time and hit the actual sarcophagus itself and cause enough damage that the sarcophagus is literally blown wide open, along with the original one that sits under the brand new one. But nevertheless, it does appear that a lot of people are actually putting in their opinions and their 2 cents on what the Russians meant by these 3 ballistic missiles that landed and exploded inside of Pripyat earlier today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like about 47% of the audience said it is a threat to hit the actual Chernobyl nuclear reactor itself, while 39% said the Russians simply want a radiation disaster, like, for example, setting the Red Forest on fire, and 6% said it seems like nothing major. And whatever the case is, it's major. When you're involving nuclear radiation, things are obviously very serious, and the Russians know that. It's not the first time they've hit the thing. They hit it with a shot head, like the Enforcer mentioned a while back, and that was right on the sarcophagus of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So the fact they're now hitting it with missiles, that indicates intent behind it. So I think, to me, it seems like they're trying to basically threaten the Ukrainians that they could cause a nuclear disaster if they wanted to, but for now they're kind of holding off. They're not really hitting the big prize, which would be the Chernobyl reactor itself, but they could, though. And if they hit that and they're actually able to breach the sarcophagus, that could be a detrimental thing, because even though Chernobyl's inactive, there's still a lot of contamination, and that could put it right into the atmosphere and also create a fire, which would be extremely devastating, to say the least. So to me, it sounds like another version of a nuclear, I don't want to say the T word, but y'all know what I'm trying to say there with that. It's nuclear threats toward Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
This is clearly some sort of an imminent nuclear threat, what would generally be described as terrorism that is currently happening on the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone area by the Russian Federation. This is a direct threat that they can hit the nuclear power plant and would hit it if they found it necessary, because there is nothing inside of Pripyat itself that is incredibly important, rather than the fact that Pripyat is just a couple of kilometers away from the nuclear reactor itself. This is something that is showing us that The Russian Federation is trying to send another imminent threat and a message through this sort of inaction, much like the time that they set a whole bunch of rubber tires on fire under a cooling tower at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to make it look like there was some sort of a nuclear disaster occurring at that power plant. It's the same kind of threat, it's the same kind of terrorism that's been going on for an incredibly long time by the Russian Federation and has once again happened today. Not only with the terrorism that's being conducted inside the exclusion zone, but simultaneously the terrorism that they just conducted against the US 6 fleet that has them still on a 4-day-long manhunt for a Russian attack submarine that has apparently long since been gone at this point from the area, and they can't even find even 4 days later. This sort of a thing is showing me, at least in my opinion, folks, that the Russian Federation is still not a country worthy of negotiating with or even meeting at a diplomatic negotiating table at this moment. The way that they operate as a country is largely almost like the Islamic Republic of Iran, as a sponsor of state terrorism. There is no other way to describe how the Russian Federation operates on a diplomatic or foreign policy level than conducting low-level coercion and generally acts of terror against any country in the world that they believe stands against their interests. And the action today at the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone and the release by the US 6 fleet about the ongoing manhunt in the area of the southern Norwegian Sea is clearly showing more credence to that idea that the Russians largely are state terrorist operators. With that in mind, I would say that the United States of America, if the administration would use any sense at all, should stop talking to the Russian Federation immediately, apply secondary sanctions, and let the Russians generally bleed out the rest of the war economically and militarily until they actually find it worthwhile to come to the negotiating table on an even footing. They continue to insist that the Zelensky government is an illegitimate government, which is not the case, and if they want to end the war, they better start recognizing them as an illegitimate government. They want to continually state that the United States, even with the almost bent-over posture we're taking at the moment with the Russian Federation, is still a threat to them, even with the posture we're taking with them, which is practically akin to appeasement at this point. They still deem the United States of America as a threat, and they continue to treat the entirety of the Western world, including the Europeans, everyone in North America, and even everyone in East Asia, as an imminent threat to the Russian Federation. That is not a country that we can find any common ground with, and that is not a country that wants to find any common ground with the West at large. There's no way that we can move forward with a country like that at all, to make that incredibly clear. Anyone who kids themselves into otherwise is kidding themselves into actual active stupidity. There's no other way to put it, and I would have to say that the Russian Federation certainly is not an ally of the United States, nor will they ever be. So with that,
Also, by the way, just to address this as well, some people are asking how severe would a missile strike, a direct missile strike on the new sarcophagus of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant actually be? So here's what we're working with, folks. This is what's inside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus. It's about 200 tons of radioactive-like corium, which is highly radioactive. It's about 30 tons of highly contaminated dust, and about 16 tons of uranium and plutonium. So it's a very, very large quantity of radioactive contaminants that are still there at the Chernobyl site. So even though it's inactive, that is still highly dangerous for dispersal reasons. And if it's hit, it could be dispersed, especially if the sarcophagus is blown apart. And the sarcophagus is not made to withstand a missile strike. It's not made to withstand that whatsoever. The new safe confinement, which is the new sarcophagus, it was damaged by the drone strike back in February of this year. It caused a gap in the top of the sarcophagus itself in the steel, and it let rain enter, which corrodes the sarcophagus underneath, because there's two versions of it. There's the old one on top of the reactor, and then there's the new one that's the outer layer that you're looking at right there on the graphic. So the thing is, if the new safe confinement, the new sarcophagus can't withstand a drone strike, it's definitely not going to withstand a missile strike. So if they hit it, it breaches the first and second sarcophagus. We're potentially looking at a scenario where all this radioactive material gets blasted out through that hole, or at least a piece of the radioactive contamination, and gets blown into the atmosphere, which would not be good. But Enforcer, do we have a wind map so we can show people where this contamination might go? Because some people are saying, wouldn't it go toward Russia and back toward Moscow? But I'm not really sure. I don't really have that map in front of me.
let me see here really quickly if I can find this wind map over Ukraine, and it looks like I have. This is the best simulation that I can get at the moment, at least of that area. But we can see that there are some winds that generally are beginning around the area. This would be the best way to describe it, around the city of Kursk. And there appears to right now be a prevailing wind that sweeps over the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, seen about here. That would then take this radioactive debris, or any sort of radioactive dust, and then just fling it on up over Poland, Kaliningrad, and then on up towards Sweden and Norway, where it would then join the greater currents around the area of the British Islands, and then would be swept over the British Islands and then out into the greater Atlantic.
So would it go toward Moscow at all, or generally not?
There is a chance that it could go towards Moscow. There is a smaller light wind that appears to also be sweeping over the exclusion zone at this moment, up towards Belarus and Minsk, and then takes a northwesterly or northeasterly direction, towards the city of Moscow itself and into the interior of western Russia. But it appears that prevailing wind is less so than the one that would take the radioactive debris directly over a country like Poland or western Belarus.
Yeah, so it would be bad for NATO. It would be bad for NATO. It would be bad for pretty much everybody. It would also be bad for Russia. Honestly, it'd be pretty bad for literally everybody. So if the Russians were willing to do something that severe, it's not just affecting them, it's affecting all the other countries that you just looked at here on the wind map. So I mean, they would be quite crazy to do that, but you can't put it past Russia because they have struck it with a shot head before, and now they're striking near Pripyat with missiles. So I'm not really sure what they're trying to do here, to be honest with you, but it seems like it's certainly a threat. We can take it that way, but whether or not they'd actually hit it with a missile, I mean, that's just wild to even think about.
Yeah, it's absolutely concerning, really, to think about at all if they would even try and hit it with a missile, but it can't really be out of the question. They did hit it with a drone before, so if they wanted to hit it with a missile, that's not too far from hitting it with a drone. But we'll have to wait and see, but it is still a somewhat concerning sort of a development to hear, at least at this moment, coming out of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Also, to give you all an idea of how serious the threat of the Russian Federation is, we're now hearing that a whole bunch of countries, including Poland and the Baltic states, are now considering returning peat bogs to their border regions. To have you all know this, peat bogs and swamps have generally been considered a nuisance by most. Have you ever been to the Everglades and dealt with the damn hordes of mosquitoes that are around the area? Matthew and me can attest to that. We went to West Palm Beach a couple of months ago, and crazy enough, like at that time of the year, there were still like an ass load of these mosquitoes everywhere. You will know that these are some generally considered a nuisance by those who live in the local area, although they're also an ecologically protected zone with a great deal of wildlife inside of it, which is also something important. But nevertheless, most of these peat bogs have generally disappeared around the areas of the borders of Belarus, Lithuania, and other countries that border the Russian Federation. These were generally seen to have disappeared during the times of the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union, as they were trying to empty out or drain these swamps to create more usable farmland to be able to produce higher crop yields year over year. Many countries within this area are actually considering restoring their wetlands pretty much as a natural obstacle to stop the Russian Federation's armed forces and also armored forces, which the Russians still rely on heavily. The idea is to restore these peat bogs or swampy areas after the Ukrainian forces blew up a dam on the Irpin River in 2022, which actually created a marshland within the area, pretty much returning the peat bogs, and also was seen to be wildly effective in stopping Russian advances. Now Poland, Finland, and Lithuania are all considering the possibility of either breaking down their dams and reopening these reservoirs, pretty much ensuring the recreation of these peat bog areas or swamps to be able to stop potential Russian offensives in the future. One has to say, and this is something that is incredibly important in military strategy and military planning, that terrain is one of the most important things to consider when conducting ground warfare. With that in mind, peat bogs are the most difficult, if not impossible, sorts of terrain features to be able to cross with a large armed force. As a matter of fact, they're practically impossible to cross. The best example of that would be the Dnipro River estuary area, which is largely a large swamp or a peat bog along both banks of the Dnipro River. It has been literally impossible for either side to actually conduct a concerted advance across the river since 2022 and take ground on the other side. There's no way to support a large enough landing force, and even if you get a large landing force on the other side, you really can't supply them consistently or easily, meaning that these offensives fail. The Ukrainian offensives at Aleshki and Kazachi Lahari largely failed, and any Russian attempts to make it across the river failed before they could even make a landfall. So pretty much, in a sense, if the Polish and Finns, along with the Lithuanians, return these peat bogs to their border regions around Belarus, Kaliningrad, the Belarusian borders, and also the Russian border within this area, it is pretty much guaranteed that large offensive avenues for the Russians would be stopped entirely, And they would also be able to create bottlenecks that the Russians would have to advance through, which would make it easier to take on their armed forces and destroy them in detail within those smaller areas where they'd be able to attempt these kinds of advances. Also, another thing that's being considered by this is the ecological impact, as peat bogs are generally considered to be carbon dioxide consumers. And considering that there's a great deal of a push for a net neutral carbon dioxide output inside of the area of the European Union, not only is it important for strategic concerns, but they're also considering it to be important for ecological concerns. Pretty much killing, what's the phrase? Killing two birds with one stone, I think is the phrase with how it goes. But still, a fairly interesting development nonetheless. Also, it does appear that we have some new satellite images at the moment. And Matthew, do we have those on Twitter?
Yes, I found some new satellite images here. I'm not sure if you've shown these already. I don't think we have, but apparently it's showing the satellite imagery of the Russian Northern Fleet, the subfleet, and it's showing that it looks like all the submarine bases for Russia's Northern Fleet are almost empty, according to the most recent satellite imagery, and it looks like an unusual amount of these submarines are out at sea right now, which would match up with the fact that we're currently seeing a massive operation underway to find one of those submarines that allegedly threatened one of the U.S. Navy vessels. So very interesting to see that.
That is very interesting to see. And interestingly enough, a lot of these actually appear to be SSBNs that are being shown in these satellite pictures. And let's see here. Let's see instead. So it appears that actually after we saw that all Russian submarines went back to base pretty much at the same time and there was hardly any Russian submarine projection at sea, now it appears that a large amount of them are now underway at sea. Practically all of them, and they're now underway again. So there are a large amount of Russian submarines that are out at sea at the moment. And actually, Matthew, we hadn't shown this yet, so this is actually somewhat important to show to folks to give you all an idea of what is actually going on right now at these Russian submarine bases within the northern region. So with that, I hope that does address it well and also gives you all a little bit of a look at what was going on at the Zapadnaya Litsa subbase, as it does appear that a large amount of them are underway at the moment. Interesting enough,
isn't that unusual? Like, isn't that really unusual, actually? Because I'm looking here at these images and also looking at one more image I just reposted right now. And with all three of them out at sea like that, what does that typically mean? Does that usually happen? Because I don't think it does.
Sometimes it can happen. It's not incredibly common. It's a little bit more uncommon, but this isn't anything that's really out of the norm. Sometimes this just does happen.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a big deal, especially since Russia's having a bit of a fuel shortage and also a manpower shortage and also supply shortage. Now, obviously, these are nuclear subs as far as we're concerned, so they wouldn't need fuel like that. But still, it seems like in the midst of everything else going on, that sending out all three subs at the same time is sort of unusual at this odd timing.
Yeah, also, by the way, I have to point out that this is actually from the 27th of July, so this is actually satellite photography from about a month ago. But one thing that
I got a new one for you, by the way. I just reposted it.
Oh, let's take a look at the new one. We want a minty fresh. So let's take a look. Wow, that is very grainy. Like, that is incredible.
Very grainy. That's that cheap satellite footage right there, but it's still footage.
Man, where did they get this from? Huawei? Like, where did this come from? But let's see here. The Severodvinsk, Kazan, and Archangel. Let me go look at the list of vessels in the Northern Fleet really quickly, the subs at least, so that way we can try and get an idea of the class. I'm first going to bump down immediately to looking at the Akula class, because that would be the one that we were guessing would have been out underway at sea at the moment. And so let me go here. Where's the Akula? So there's the Oscar II, the Yasin. So they're saying that the Arkhangelsk, Kazan, and Severodvinsk, here's the Arkhangelsk and the Severodvinsk, and then they also said the Kazan. So that actually would be all three of their Yasin class SSGNs. But actually, these are actually nuclear-powered attack submarines. So this could have been, and it's heavily based on the Akula and the Alpha class. The Alpha class is the one that was actually made out of titanium. The Akula class was not, because making submarines out of titanium ended up being incredibly expensive, and they actually didn't work that well. But beyond that, this is an attack submarine that could have been present, that also could have threatened the fleet as well. I actually overlooked this one earlier because I only saw the Kilo class submarines and the Akula class submarines in larger numbers, but it could have also been a Yasin class submarine seen here, as these are also of the attack variety and could pose a threat to the U.S. Sixth Fleet or any vessels under the command of the Sixth Fleet at the moment. So very interesting, and that does prove the credence, or prove the idea, that it was a nuclear-powered attack submarine. I also have to eat my foot here, folks, on air and give an official retraction. Highly likely not Nakula. It was most likely a Yasin class, so it does appear that that analysis was incorrect, although the fact that it was a nuclear-powered submarine is still correct at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that well. I also see someone saying Confederate flag. No, not a Confederate flag on that. That is actually the flag of the Russian Navy, or at least one of them. Let me go and get that really quickly. Here we are. This is a Russian Navy ensign. A lot of people mistake these for the Confederate flag, but nothing similar. The Confederate flag is very different looking than this, and does not have a white cross cutting the flag into quarters pretty much horizontally and vertically. That is not a thing on a Confederate flag. There also is another one, and this one's also a little bit confusing, which is the flag of Novorossiya, which is very similar to that of the Russian naval ensign. And this is probably the closest that any Russian flag gets to looking like a Confederate flag, but still not the Confederate flag, something that's more embedded inside of the Russian Federation than anything. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have tonight, as we still have a lot of significant news coming out from around the rest of the world, also including Crimea, where a major drone attack occurred tonight. But before we get on into the rest of that news, I do have to say that we have something a little bit important to announce to all of y'all, and that is that we have a channel legend here with us tonight again, and that is BC Skyman. Many of y'all know BC Skyman as an absolute channel legend. He's been around on the channel literally since pretty much its inception, since about day 4 or even earlier. And BC Skyman is actually running an incredible operation with his friend Yuri. BC Skyman and his friend Yuri actually conduct, on the behalf of the Leaf Spring Army, a bandage fundraiser, which is where they will raise a certain kind of Leukomed bandage. I'll really quickly, actually, I cannot show that on screen because that's going to pull up my Amazon account, so I won't be able to show you all that tonight because that will give away our address and everything. We don't want psychos doxing us and trying to murder us and everything, so I won't be able to show that right now. But beyond that, we do, through BC Skyman, fundraise bandages directly to BC Skyman. We send them to him, and then he gets Yuri to bring those over to Ukraine, and those are given over to a battalion or brigade inside of Ukraine that is currently fighting against the Russian Federation. Those bandages are life-saving, and they are able to help out Ukrainian soldiers in the very moment of life or death. They are a massive benefit, and BC Skyman and his friend Yuri have actually conducted this operation once in the name of the Leaf Spring Army, and it was a massive success, with nearly, I believe it was something around 1,000 of these bandages actually being sent over to Ukraine and helping out the service members over there. So we actually have a banner up in the chat right now that you can email BC Skyman at to be able to send him the bandages. And really quickly, we actually have the bandages right here. These are the ones that you're looking for if you want to get them. They are the BSN Medical Leukomed T+ absorbent film wound dressings, sterile, 4-inch by 11.8-inch box of 50. These are quite truly life-saving bandages, and if y'all want to get these bandages, make sure to reach out to BC Skyman. We provided an email for BC Skyman in a banner in the live chat. It's at the very top of the live chat under the Enforcer. It's the post by me. Click on that, and it will have the email for BC Skyman in it. You can immediately email him and then start setting up these bandages to be sent to BC Skyman, which will then be sent into Ukraine not that long after. It'll be about a month and a half or 2 months after, and then we will be showing y'all all the videos and pictures that Yuri takes while he's in Ukraine of the delivery of these bandages to the brigade that will be selected. So
I think last time, BC, he said here in the chat that last time it was about 2,000 bandages, so a hell of a lot last time.
Dang.
Very successful last time. And also, by the way, I just want to clarify one more thing. Please, only if you decide to do this. Also, by the way, we're only spreading the word. This is something that BC Skyman and Yuri are running completely on their own. We're simply spreading the word on it. So if you want to contact him and get more information about where to send it, etc., his email is in the top banner. It's posted in the chat there. You'll have to ask BC Skyman about that because it is something that he's running and not actually being run by us here on the channel. So you'll have to coordinate that with him. him on his side, and his email's right there at the top. But yeah, last time it was a huge success though. So hopefully this time it's another huge success.
Hopefully it will be a huge success. I also have to say as well, this is not a normal Sunday night fundraiser or anything like that that's run through YouTube or run directly through us. This is something that BEC Skyman and Yuri are taking directly upon themselves on behalf of the Lee Spring Army, but it's not directly run through the Enforcer channel. So you will have to reach out directly to BC Skyman, which his email is provided in the pinned comment inside of the live chat, to be able to reach out and coordinate with BC Skyman to be able to get these bandages to him so that way they can get into Ukraine. So I hope that makes that somewhat clear, and I hope that we were able to get a decent amount of these bandages to the folks over there in Ukraine, because they were an absolute lifesaver. And to really quickly break this down for y'all, yes, these are a little bit expensive. Each one of these bandages runs about $3, but they are sterile, and not only that, they are quite truly lifesavers at a time of need. $3 for a single bandage will save a single Ukrainian soldier's life. And then when you put it in that kind of perspective, $3 is not really that much for a bandage, considering that these are quite truly life-saving bandages. So please make sure to reach out to BC Skyman if you would like to support this sort of operation here, and you will be able to actually be a part of one of the Lee Spring affiliated projects that is actually being run by the amazing BC Skyman and Yuri that are actually helping out people inside of Ukraine. And so,
surprisingly, that bandage right there, because I went and actually checked around to see if that price on Amazon was a good price or not, because I'm like, dang, that's pretty expensive. It's like $2.90 per bandage, which is pretty high, but it's a specialty type of bandage apparently. So it's the ones that Ukrainians specifically want. So they're obviously fighting on the front line, so they know how to use it best. So this larger style of trauma bandage must work better. But this thing right here appears to be pretty much on par with what other companies are selling it for. So it looks like Amazon is not too bad when it comes to their price on that. I think some other places I saw it, you could generally like go maybe $135 or something like that, but certainly not cheap. But if that's what they're needing though, that's what they need. They need the actual professional stuff, since they're actually dealing with some serious wounds. They're not going to be operating with like your homemade gauze, I would say, because obviously they're getting gunshot wounds and things like that. It's pretty serious. So yeah, seems like it'd be a good help.
Yeah, shrapnel wounds, all that sort of a thing, not really something you want to play around with and go, oh, I'll whip out a Band-Aid for that. Not really a Band-Aid sort of a thing, getting shot or getting shrapnel inside of you. Something that requires a little bit more of a heavy-duty kind of a bandage. But hopefully we'll be able to see that this fundraising operation for these bandages is as successful as the last one. Once again, make sure to reach out to BC Skyman. The email is provided in the live chat if you want to help to support this sort of an operation. But nevertheless...
and also one other comment as well. BC Skyman wanted me to mention, please do not send him money, because he can't accept the money. He's just simply sending the bandages. So if you're choosing to reach out to him, he's going to probably tell you that in his email as well, but he also told that to me directly. So the bandages are the only thing he wants to send. So please don't send us money to him, because that creates other issues with taxes and things like that. And I'm sure BC doesn't want to deal with that because it gets complicated. So please, just the bandages only. But the rest of it, you'll have to coordinate through BC Skyman.
Also, I have to make an incredibly clear disclaimer that if you are not directly emailing the email we have in the live chat, and someone is saying that they're BC Skyman and it's not the email we just provided in the live chat, that is a scam. Do not be fooled. Only use the email that we provide in the live chat. Do not listen to anyone in a comment section, the live chat, or anyone else that is not BC Skyman that is claiming to be BC Skyman. Really just refer to that email, reach out through that email, and you will immediately get to him. Do not send anyone direct cash or money. Send bandages only to that email, to the specific instructions provided in that email. I want to make that incredibly clear, because someone out there is probably going to be end up maybe being a sucker, and some guy called Fibby Squip is going to claim that they're BC Skyman and say, send this via Telegram Western Union through Amazon gift cards. And I'm not going to have anyone coming back and saying, well, that wasn't BC Skyman, because obviously it wasn't. Use the email provided in the live chat, and that one only. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And it is time for us to move on into the question segment for a brief moment before we get into the rest of the news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat here, and then we're going to grab 3 and then get back to our news. Our first one here goes to Joe in the Box. And thank you very much, Joe in the Box, for that $100 donation. And we do appreciate that very, very much. Very generous support, by the way. And Joe said, putting this toward getting your leaf springs replaced on your vehicles, LOL.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support for the leaf springs. We always have to replace the leaf springs. The leaf springs wear out. they get a little bit old and tired sometimes. And I gotta say, a huge thanks to you so much for enjoying this channel and helping it to keep on running, Joe in the Box. Because folks like you help us to replace our leaf springs and keep our cars rolling, so that way we can make sure to continue to keep this channel rolling each and every day, much like our cars, much like the great railroads of America. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and a huge thanks to you for the insanely massive support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we truly wouldn't be able to make this channel a possibility. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to BC Skyman himself that we just mentioned, and he puts in a $100 donation, by the way, and thank you, Runs BC, for supporting the channel while also helping Ukraine at the same time. Very generous of you. He said, good evening, everyone, and Paul, Yuri's brother, is going to Ukraine at the end of September, and he said they're taking the shipment of the bandages in the size 4x11 that's up there in the, I think we just showed it on the screen, actually.
Yes.
And he said, everyone interested in helping can email him, and the email's in the banner, and he said, let's save some lives.
Hey, and let's save some lives in DBC Scam, and I gotta thank you massively for being a huge part of this channel, and not only that, the amazing things that the Leaf Spring Army, you and Yuri were able to do the last time that these bandages were sent over. I actually underestimated the number. It wasn't 1,000, it was 2,000 bandages that were sent over. That is 2,000 bandages, folks. One of those bandages is enough to save a life. That is about 2,000 lives that the Leaf Spring Army could have potentially saved through those bandages being sent. And I've got to say that hopefully this time we can set the bar even higher and hopefully get even more than 2,000 bandages over. I'll, of course, be trying to chip in as many of them as I can personally, because it's always a great thing to know that we are able to directly help out in Ukraine, which is something that we rarely get to do through this channel, because we always try and make sure that our fundraisers are raised or run more so through YouTube, which only allows us to support certain kinds of nonprofits. And then we have to, just largely hope that those nonprofits are doing incredibly good work. We don't really get to directly see it. This is one of the few times we actually get to directly be involved in helping out inside of Ukraine, at least with these bandages, in a direct way that is actually done directly by the LSA. So I got to say a huge thanks to you so much once again for support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. And hopefully we'll be able to make sure that loads of people are able to get bandages off to you and Yuri, so that way we can get them on over in Ukraine and continue to help out in support of American and Western interest in the best way that the Leaf Spring Army can. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, and this one goes to Thomas Miller, who puts in a $50 donation, and thank you, Thomas, as well, for that generous support. He said coffee money from South Georgia and LSA.
Hey, coffee money from South Georgia. Which Georgia? You talking about this Georgia in Tbilisi? Or are you talking about this Georgia down here near Albany? Or better yet, Moultrie, which is really South Georgia. I got to thank you for the support, Thomas Miller. I bet you're talking about South Georgia here in Alabama. I mean, it's South Georgia in South Georgia in America. What am I talking about? I don't even know. But beyond that, I do have to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you, Thomas Miller, who help us to keep this channel running and help us to keep this thing possible day in and day out. I've got to say, if it wasn't for folks like you, the Leaf Spring Army wouldn't be able to continue to say, long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die. And I got to say, a massive thanks and a huge appreciation to you so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we would not be able to make this channel possible and keep it rolling day in and day out. So with that, it is time for us to move on from this question segment and on into the rest of the news that we have had over the course of the day. And moving right back into Ukraine, we actually were able to hear the Russians were getting hit last night. 200 drones were launched by Ukraine into Crimea. Now, that's a lot of them. That's really a lot of them for a Russian attack on the whole of the state of Ukraine. That's really a lot of them for a place as small as Crimea. And the reports started flying in. There were explosions all over the area of the skies of Simferopol earlier in the night. We could see that right there. Most likely air defense fire that was occurring over the city as the drones were coming in. And we were then able to hear that there were explosions in Sevastopol, near to the area of Kazachia Bay. Let's listen. Oh.
Sounds serious.
Sounds large. And we also got to see that possibly some laser-based air defense systems were being used by the Russians, although we don't really know. There were some sort of beams coming from the ground, and it's believed that it may be some sort of a Chinese laser air defense system that the Russians were using. I don't really know. Is it? Is it not? Who knows? I have no clue. But they're saying that there might have been some used. But if Ukrainian drones were being used, they certainly weren't that high up in altitude where they would have to be aiming them that far. So, not really sure about that one. But beyond that, it does appear that the drone attack was significant, and a lot of the damage reports are probably going to be coming out in the next day. Meanwhile, that fuel train that caught on fire around the area of the city of Tashankoi is still on fire as of today.
This train sounds rough. I've never heard one like making sounds like that.
I've never heard one creaking. Like, that thing is worn out, man. That thing is literally rolling down the rails going, I'm tired, boss. And it's like, man, that thing is tired as hell. Man, that thing is worn out almost as bad as Chris's mom. Moving on from that, though, and into the Black Sea, we also got to see a Russian aircraft trailing a PA Poseidon. Sadly, this video does not work, but we can see that the Russians did track down a PA Poseidon. These generally operate in an orbit around the area of the northeastern area of the Black Sea, right off of the Kerch Strait, just about. So it appears that the Russian Air Force mobilized one of their aircraft to go out there and stalk the P-8, but that did not deter the P-8. The P-8 was operating in international airspace and continued to conduct its surveillance operation against the Russians. Moving on out of Crimea, however, and on into the rest of the news that we have from the rest of the world, we're actually going to be moving on really quickly into Ukraine for a brief moment before we move on out of the whole area, because we'll be getting a deeper frontline analysis here in a minute. But we've actually been able to hear that pretty much every analyst in the world has declared that the Russian summer offensive in Ukraine has effectively failed. They used probably the best picture to show that the Russian offensive failed. This guy looks like he was working in the coal mine or turned into Golem while in the coal mine, came out, and then he went, like, as he's looking up at the Trump.
He's been put through hell, man. I mean, look at that face. He's been put through it.
Honestly, man, I don't know if he was put through hell or if he's from hell. He looks like he might actually be from hell. But nevertheless, in 3 months, the Russians have taken probably some of the highest losses they've taken in the war from what we would guesstimate at this point, and have only captured about 0.3% of Ukrainian territory. So it appears that this was a complete failure. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so the big bad summer offensive that Russia was boasting was going to take so much Ukrainian land has only taken 0.3%. That's not even 1% of Ukraine's land that's been taken over the summer. It's literally barely a third of Ukraine's, like a 0.3% of Ukrainian land's been taken. It's really wild how small they've actually taken. So what are your thoughts about that? 59% said Russia is hopeless on the front, while 30% said Russia will persist and take more, and 7% said Ukraine is running out of steam and might not last that much longer. And I would say Russia is hopeless on the front. But I will say this at the same time, though, Ukraine really has no major hope of taking their ground back on the front lines. Their biggest hope is to cause the Russian economy to collapse and therefore bring the war to an end. Because right now it's still a stalemate on the front lines, and Russia's showing no signs of stopping when it comes to their meat grinder strategy. So even though Ukraine's still holding their ground, they're fighting very hard. It's going to be hard to push back the mere horde of Russian soldiers that are being thrown at the front because they replace them like they're disposable. So it's hard to keep up with that as Ukraine fighting fairly and Russia not fighting fairly, like Gollum, like you see right here. Look at that. That's ugly, that thing right there. That's like that Russian soldier, honestly. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I generally have to say that the Russians are hopeless on the front. I don't really think that they have a lot of chance or an ability of progress at this point on pushing the Ukrainians back. A 0.3% territorial gain is a non-existent one on pretty much an entire seasonal scale. So I generally have to say I do not believe that the Russians will be making any greater ground at this point throughout the rest of the war. And once again, this war is going to be fought in the rear lines on trying to strike and destroy key strategic targets and infrastructure. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But moving on, whoa, that voice crack. Jeez,
Whoa,
dang,
damn.
where in the world did that come from? But anyways, moving on from that and on into the greater amounts of news that we were able to get from the outside world. I'm going to be quickly moving through the Indian and Iranian news as just more so updates, but we were able to hear once again the Indian position on the matter with the United States and also its Russian oil imports, as India saved $17 billion by ramping up Russian oil imports, according to Reuters. The new tariffs of up to 50% could slash Indian exports to the U.S. by $37 billion. Labor-heavy sectors like textiles, gyms, and jewelry face major job losses. India is open to buying more U.S. energy, but won't abandon Russia entirely, meaning that sanctions and secondary tariffs will be going up against the Indians no matter what. Although for some reason we're not implementing secondary sanctions against Russia itself, which I still find to be A little bit odd. Moving on from that, though, and on into the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to hear that the Iranians are now claiming that this explosion in Bandar Abbas, or specifically at the Rajai port, is actually because of the Israeli Mossad. Crazy. It took them months to figure that out. We said it right when it happened. Here's the clip again, though, just to remind you all of what that explosion looked like. It's orange. This thing is about to go up bigly. Like it. They said they've never seen an explosion like this in their life. Take a look. I gotta be honest with you. The explosion was orange. It was the biggest one that had ever been seen. They said, sir, there couldn't be a bigger explosion in Rajai port. And I said, check this out, Reggie. Watch this drive. And then we blew the whole thing up. But beyond that, it does appear that the Iranians are now saying the Israelis were responsible for that. Moving on from that and into the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were also able to hear that the E3, Britain, France, and Germany, will be activating the snapback mechanism as soon as tomorrow, claiming Tehran has violated the JCPOA 2015 nuclear deal. Wow, it's like they're kind of like a little bit behind that. That happened months ago. But it does appear that they are now also going to be admitting that the Iranians are in violation of the JCPOA. Moving on out of that, however, and on into Syria, where a lot of the major developments within the region happened today, we were able to hear of something quite interesting. The Israelis were out in southern Syria in mass. We were able to hear large amounts of helicopter activity within the area, and I'll let you all hear it right here in this clip.
Sounds a bit like a raid.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
You always know it's Syria. It's really hard to say how you know it's Syria, but you just know it's Syria. I don't know what it is. I have no clue, folks. Matthew, it's entirely undetectable as to why this would be believed to be Syria, but there's just something that tells me that that clip's from Syria. Also, we got to see or hear these helicopters also around southern Damascus as well in this clip. There's quite a lot of helicopter activity. Oh, there's a little flash. Outside of this helicopter activity, which was being conducted near Damascus, along with that bottle rocket being fired, we also were able to hear of some airstrikes being conducted by the Israeli Air Force near the area. Like that one. And this one. You got mail. And this one.
You got mail. Hey, look, Ma, there's a missile outside.
Hold up, let me get this email.
Oh.
Bro, Satan's behind the camera on this one. Yo, take a look at that. But I'll say, here's another clip. You hear the sound of the jet. Well, moving on from those clips and on into our next one from inside of Damascus, we also were able to see these airstrikes in better detail from the hillsides around the city. Oh!
Oh, dear.
Oh, great heavens. Oh, heavens.
I like how this person was just pointing that camera right there at the exact good moment right there. This is like good fortune telling right here.
Wait a minute, though. I'm not hearing that usual phrase. I'm not really sure if this is Syria.
Oh, he's a dedicated cameraman. He doesn't interrupt it with that blasphemous talk right there. He's keeping it silent, folks. He wants to hear the ambience, the ASMR war sound.
Yeah, but you know, folks, like that's like Syria's version of like a copyright watermark. You know, like when you're listening to those videos, it's like real trap shit brought to you by Radio City. In Syria, it's just they just do it every like 15 seconds or so. It's what they do in Syria. But moving on from that, we also were able to hear an unverified report, or generally a rumor that's circling at the moment. I want to make sure that we got it out there though, just in case if it does end up being verified, that apparently IDF forces may have kidnapped a senior Iranian official in one of these raids. We don't really know if that is the case, but it appears that there is some sort of a rumor circling that that might have happened inside of southern Syria, but we'll have to wait until we get further confirmation on that. So that's not being reported as actual news. All we know is that there are raids happening in southern Syria, and there are airstrikes. Beyond that, we don't really know what's happening outside of that. But moving on from the Middle East and back into Ukraine. Well, actually, really quickly, let me go get the South American news so that way we can knock that out. Just a small little bit of a development from Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory. We were able to hear that the U.S. is amassing P-8 Poseidons around the area of Puerto Rico, apparently to conduct more reconnaissance operations against the Venezuelans, which may be suggesting further U.S. military activity will be conducted against Venezuela at a later date. Moving on out
What do you think's going on with that, by the way? Like, real quick to just discuss that a little bit further. I've been seeing people say, and I'll be honest, the more assets are being deployed to this region, the more I'm starting to think that maybe the likelihood's going up. Do you think we're actually considering launching some sort of military action against Venezuela? That would be a wild step to take, but we've got ships in the area. We've got these planes showing up. I mean, it seems like we're setting up for something to happen, but it's unclear exactly what.
I really don't know what we would be setting up for either. But it's very reminiscent of Operation Just Cause, where we invaded Panama. It's kind of a little bit similar to that to some extent. So I don't know. Like, is there a chance of military activity being conducted? I mean, yeah. I mean, with any military buildup, there's a possibility for that. Is it some sort of posturing? It definitely is that. But is it going to be an armed invasion? That's kind of the question. And I don't really know. I honestly wouldn't be against it. I mean, Maduro is definitely a hostile government to the United States, and not only that, an illegitimate one. But whether it actually would be an armed invasion or not, it's a little bit hard to tell. And I see some people saying they're going after the cartels. Well, he's claimed to be a member of the cartel, and we have a $50 million bounty out for him. Generally, when we do stuff like that, it's a prelude to an armed invasion in a sense. But anyways, moving on from that.
I thought I heard while I was looking at this news earlier, I heard in the background a big old squall, squall. I was like, what the hell is that? And I saw the bald eagle flying in and saying something about they smelled oil or something. I was like, those birds, man, those crazy birds. I don't know what they're going on about. Birds smelling oil. I didn't know they smell oil like that. Like, it happens to be when a bald eagle flies over some oil or something, it like spawns missiles in on the wings of that eagle and all of a sudden starts firing down to people near the oil. It's really weird.
Man, every time anyone finds oil in the world, they look up and they go, look, it's a shooting star. No, that's not a shooting star. That's a tomahawk. Like, and then you just hear, oh, say, can you see? Getting louder from the horizon. Like, it's every single time, weirdly enough. It's just bizarre. Like, oil was discovered, or at least large oil deposits around the Gulf of Guinea. And then, oddly enough, that's where the Sixth Fleet usually ends up its deployments. It's around the Gulf of Guinea. Kind of odd with that, Really odd how that works.
And Venezuela happens to have a lot of oil, and it happens to be that we are not very happy with Venezuela's leader, Maduro, because, of course, he's a very, very dictatorial fellow, and the U.S. doesn't like dictators, or at least I don't think we do. But I think that they might go down there and say that guy might want to step aside a little bit because they might want to borrow some oil out of Venezuela, I think. I have a feeling that might actually lean us toward maybe going to war with Venezuela, maybe.
I don't know, Matthew. I just know of this thing from, like, Dune. They said the spice must flow. But in America, it's the oil must flow. Like, that's what we say. Man, that's our version of the spice, honestly. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on from the whole Venezuela speculation thing. It is what it is, folks. What can you do? But moving on out of the whole Venezuela thing and empanada eaters land, it's time for us to move on into the land of Eastern Europe again, the Rossiyski Federacy. We have plenty of news to cover inside the Russian Federation and from the Ukrainian front lines. Starting off in Moskva, we were able to see that Enforcer Matt today made an astute observation. I had to point this one out. This is what the current Russian gas station looks like. This is what the late Soviet gas stations looked like. See the similarities?
Yes. I see the similarities. It's like they've conjured that old ghost of old Soviet past. An old Soviet ghost has appeared. It's the old gas shortages. They're back once again. In commie land, when you start having all these different shortages, you can't find beans on the shelf. You can't find gas at the gas station because communism works so well that the people can't get the right resources they need every day. So it looks like Putin's brought it back in his quest to rebuild the Russian Empire. He has brought it back.
Man, I gotta say, when Putin went out to create the Russian Empire, he didn't realize that he was just getting a discount Soviet Union. It's really, many such cases happens a lot out there. We also got to hear that in the meantime, the Ryazan-Moscow fuel line exploded today, almost like in a nuclear explosion. That was the only picture we got of it. It looks like the picture they had of the Trinity test when the bomb went off. Like, it's very similar, but that's what happened. So apparently, all fuel supplies to Moscow had been cut off from this pipeline explosion. Womp womp, boo-hoo-hoo. Moving on from that and into Samara, we also were able to hear that the Ukrainians hit the Samara refinery again. What a great day. Take a look.
Задолбали. Да там не только ее. Там, походу, дело не только АВТшку, потому что что горит, слушай, блядь, сильный какой пожар-то горит. Мне кажется, в прошлый раз не было такой хуйни. Да.
It's toasting. This woman just said it was like nom. Listen, she said nom. Like,
Да.
Veterans everywhere. You never know where a veteran lives currently.
suka, boy, it's just like freaking nom. Like, I'm good. But anyways,
I always knew the Russians were involved with Nam. I always knew it.
oh, dude, it was obvious. It was obvious. There's no way that the NVA wasn't supported by the damn Soviets. But anyways, we also got to see the air defense fire over Samara as the refinery was still being attacked.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
big air defense.
That's a machine gun fire. Wow. Open. Oh. Oh. Another one.
Завод.
Toasty.
Третий.
Wow. Moving on from that, we have one more clip to show you all of the refinery in Samara. I think be cooking.
A hellish landscape. What a necessary one.
And that ain't vegetable oil, kids. That's real oil. That's crude oil on fire out there. Isn't that wonderful? Another refinery knocked out of business. The Russians, they cry greatly. We also get to see that there was a strike on a Russian railway station inside the small town of Pevtrov Val. Take a look at this. A little bit of a hit. Well, they had some machine guns. It didn't do them any good.
Oh, I hear the lawnmower.
And a free
yes.
trim. Oh, there's like an electrical explosion out there. And that dog be going
They call
off.
that the snapper right there. It comes in and just snaps whatever it hit.
Man, it went snap, and then it went off. But moving on from that, it's time for us to move on into the front lines. On up into the area of the Sumy front, we were also able to see the Ukrainian 8th Special Forces Regiment getting in some action with the Russians. Take a little gander at this, folks. This was near to the area of the Kursk border. A little artillery explosion there. They got low for a second, but they're on their way once more. Another explosion, quite close actually. And now you see them getting in a little bit of a firefight. Actually, you'll see he might be trying to shoot down a drone, although it's a little hard to see.
Над нами! Збив! Збив!
Я збив, нахуй! Я! Після мого вистрілу впав, в мене записано. Там ще один.
It appears that they're trying to shoot at the drone again. Why is this stuff in black and white, folks? What the hell are we watching? Like the Twilight Zone?
As the war goes on, things become more black and white every day.
Oh!
Oh,
Стоп, хорош, хорош, нахуй!
Oh, you see him whipping out the grenade launcher. You know, folks, I just feel like this video is missing something. I felt like it was missing a nice trap beat over the top of it, or one of those, you know, like redone Euro beat versions of a Ukrainian song, like, oh, you lazy. I just felt like it was missing that, you know? Like, it was a shame. Honestly, though, it was refreshing to see that there was not a clip that had music over it for once, so that we could actually hear the sounds of the combat. But moving on from that, we also have one thing in our location unknowns today, which is the Russian casualty report. And we were able to see the losses were great. According to Ms. DC, keeper of the records, August troop loss unlikely to reach 30,000 at this pace, the lowest level since spring of 2024. Most category totals are expected to be less than July. And while the numbers are a little bit lower, it still has been a pretty decent month. We were able to see that 920 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 118 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 45 artillery pieces, 194 drone, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. In general, it was a pretty good day. Not a bad one at all, and it does appear the Ukrainians are continuing to hold the line. Speaking of them continuing to hold the line, we didn't get a lot of frontline updates from the areas around Kupiansk or from the Severonsky Forest, but we got a lot of them from Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk. Moving on into the Konstantinivka front first, we got to see the Ukrainian sappers, or as we call them, the, look, there it is, that Eurobeat music that I was talking about. There it is, we were missing it. But the 111th Luhansk Territorial Defense Brigade once again sent out the Petardiers to throw in landmines into the Russian outposts. So here's the clip. And let me put in the music since we can't for copyright reasons. When worlds collide, you'll swear to die. When worlds collide. But anyways, we can see it throwing the landmine.
Jeez, don't ever do that again, man. You're killing me. Oh, damn. Look at that, though.
Man, look at that.
Finished them off.
Whoa. I mean, might be the next pull in Chesty here. but anyways. Oh, man, we can see that they got it. The Russian outpost is gone.
It's definitely gone, that's for sure.
By
the way, I just clicked my mouse just then. After I clicked the mouse, the mouse literally started ticking like a Geiger counter. It went tick, 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 tick. I was like, what the hell is going on with that? I was like, speaking of Chernobyl, what's wrong with my mouse?
It's a sign. It's not a good one either. But I like
to stop doing it, thankfully. I don't know what the hell's up with that though. Like the mouse was literally just clicking like a Geiger counter just then, kind of odd.
I wouldn't put too much into it. 3.6 Ronkin, not great, not terrible. But we also got to see the Ukrainian police back at it again on the front lines near Toretsk.
Так, виходимо фішки з позиції. Рух!
Well, that sounds
they're
like,
sneaking music in there.
That sounds like copyright music to me. They tried to sneak it in, but we still muted it. But we can see them yelling out in the clip as they move around. We see them now moving down the street with the rest of their forces in the National Police. You know, folks, we got a keen ear for things that are potentially copyright nowadays. Whenever any music plays, it's automatically muted.
I like the videos with the raw sound in it, so that way you can hear like what it really sounds like and stuff. I don't know why the Ukrainians love to put the music over it, because most people that watch this war footage right here are typically people that analyze it or something like that, and most people that analyze it don't want to hear all those funk beats.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that's true. We don't want to hear that Euro trash, like they said in Seinfeld 9 million times. I don't know why they were obsessed with that, but the writers would fit in Euro trash every chance they could get. Honestly, some European music is like really good. I don't know why they had like a problem with it.
Euro Papa, Euro Papa.
Wait,
look at this.
Hang on, man. Let me get the right one. Espresso macchiato, por favore. But anyways, moving on from that, that was the Ukrainian National Police there. And moving on into our next clip, we also get to see them taking a ride through Konstantinivka. Let's take a little look. I like that M4 right there. Nice M4. He looks happy to have it.
Сьогодні 27.08. Повертаємося додому. Гарний денечок, спалені тачки, людей нема. Ми чилим.
Well, that was a ride through Konstantinivka, just to give you all an idea of what that's looking like. Right now, the Ukrainian forces are holding back the Russians near to Chasiv Yar and Toretsk, but generally, this battlefield is now pivoting around the axis of the town of Konstantinivka, not an independent battlefield consisting of Chasiv Yar and Toretsk like it once was. Moving on from that, though, and on into the Pokrovsk front, we also were able to see that the Ukrainians were continuing to take more Russian prisoners. Oh, and Chad music ensues.
Funk. It's back. The funk is back.
Man, I'm gonna make you pop like that. Boom, boom, boom. But he's moving on from that though.
Like a Diddy beat.
Man, honestly, man, it was kind of like a Diddy beat, but it was a real beat. Like I could pull it up, but we're gonna get copyrighted if we played it. But beyond that, we were able to hear from a lot of folks their 2 cents. And before I show y'all that clip, just to tease y'all a little bit, before we get on into that clip, we do have a question that was asked of all of y'all about what your thoughts are on the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline blowing up today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this was a very big hit, by the way. Not a minor hit whatsoever. This was the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline that literally cut off the fuel supplies to Moscow, and it's going to cut them off indefinitely, by the way. Nobody's really sure when the pipeline's going to get fixed. So with this going all the way to Moscow, and that's where the elites of Russia live, what is this going to cause? And about 57% said that will force a Putin response, while 27% said Putin will just fix it and ignore it, and 7% said the U.S. will be alerted to it, and Putin's going to enlist the help of the United States to deal with it. And I'm going to say this. It sounds like Putin is not going to be fixing at that pipeline. They're not even sure when it's going to be able to be back in operation. So they've effectively cut off the fuel supplies to Moscow completely, which is going to cause a problem because that's going to exacerbate the fuel shortage and make it even worse in the most populated area of the country. So that's obviously problematic, and I think it is going to force a Putin response. Putin is probably going to go crawling to the United States and crying and saying that Zelensky is not trying to end the war. He just cut off my fuel supply. Please turn it back on. And there may or may not be a U.S. reaction to it. I'm not sure if there will be or not. These days, I'm not really sure. It's hard to predict that. But the U.S. could tell Ukraine, stop doing that. You're not really going for peace. Or they could say nothing. They could go silent about it, not say a word to Putin, and say, you're on your own, Putin, screw off, which is what they should say. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that in my honest opinion, I think that this is going to be something that has no response to it. Putin will most likely just ignore it. He won't really fix it, though. So I'd have to kind of be with the 27%, at least in spirit, because I don't really think it could be a response to Putin. I really don't know how the U.S. would react to this because, honestly, the U.S. position at this point makes no sense. So, it could be, I'm not very happy about this whole thing, that could happen. So, who knows? But beyond that, I have to say that I'm kind of with the 26% on that. I think that Putin will just ignore it because there's not really a lot that they can do, and the Russians don't like to point out that they're getting beat everywhere, so they'll most likely just try and ignore it the best they can. That would be my 2 cents on it. But moving on.
When's the last time Putin said thank you? Like, honestly, he should tell Zelensky thank you for that because with Moscow having such a problem with drones, y'all know that Moscow's been having significant problems being attacked by drones. Those things are pesky. They're swarming the place. They're swarming the whole joint. And it's really troublesome. So cutting off the gas was actually a useful thing that Ukraine did because that removes the flammable aspect. You need to get all the flammables out of Moscow so that way there's nothing to explode because explosions are bad. So they took the gas away. I think Putin should be very grateful. I think we should bring in maybe the people that like to tell people to say thank you, to tell them that.
Have you said thank you? The couch is here, and it's listening too, and it wants to hear a thank you. But who knows? Maybe we'll ask for a thanks. Probably not though. Because oddly enough, we can implement tariffs against China and India, which are nuclear-armed economic superpowers, if you want to call them that. For India, that's a huge stretch to call them a superpower. But for China, I guess you could kind of call them that. Not really. But then Russia doesn't even qualify. And for some reason, we got to tiptoe around sanctioning Russia because they have nukes, like China doesn't. It makes no sense to me. But anyways, moving on from that, we do have this clip here showing the 33rd Assault Regiment carrying out a little firefight with the Russians in the Pokrovsk area. Take a look. There's the Russians, and they're getting hammered. Oh. It looks like those Russians got a little surprise. Shy of surprise, I guess you could say.
Please, Mr. Putin, in that war.
Please, Mr. Zelensky, bomb the pipeline. Anyways, here comes the Ukrainians.
Please, Mr. Zelensky, go easy on the Russians. They're so innocent.
Please, Mr. Zelensky, would you spare the Russians? They're such good people. Have you seen their government and how they run their little church? It's not even like a Christian religion. It's more so like a state cult. Please, Mr. Zelensky.
Siri Rabbit, tricks are for Putin.
Oh, man. Couches are for sitting.
That's right. Make sure you remember that. Remember that closely.
Bro, that's going to be on a Call of Duty death scene in the future, like when you die, when they used to have like the inspirational quotes. It'll just sit there and say, couches are for sitting. Dasher Zelensky. Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
And we can see that they're taking some Russians prisoner here. Oh, man.
I'll be honest, couches are never a good sign. Like, honestly, it's got a very bad connotation in so many different settings. When you see a couch, it's probably a good thing to just walk the other way, I think.
Nowadays, you gotta, like, man, honestly, the couches...
Man couches!
They got no representation, God knows what's happening to them up there now, and nobody says a word. Not even the couches. They don't get to say anything about what happened to them. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. But moving on from that and into the next bit of news that we got to see, we also got to see the 91st Separate Anti-Tank Battalion going out of their way to recover a Humvee. That was actually pretty interesting. It's a flipped-over Humvee. I don't know how it flipped over, but it did, so they're going to recover it. You see that they've identified the flipped-over Humvee. They're like, it flipped over. We now see them standing at the flipped-over Humvee. They're like, yep, that's a flipped-over Humvee. And now the recovery process begins. So they get a recovery vehicle out there. They flip it over, which they're about to do here in a second. And here we are. They're pulling the tow cable. They flip the Humvee over, and they immediately hop in the driver's seat to get this thing running and tow it. They're on their way. A recovered Humvee. Another successful day.
Also, by the way, I gotta say that more videos coming out right now. The refinery that got hit in Samara. It's now daytime in Russia, and unfortunately, you're going to have to jump to this real quick and show this. The Russian fire department's actually showing up, but the problem is though they can't even get close to it because the fire is spread to the entire facility. It looks like literally the entire facility is up in blazes right now. There's really nowhere to start.
Let's take a look at all of these guys. Bro, this guy came in with the energy. Oh, полный, easy. Like, it's like, bro.
17, я посчитал. Уже год. 17, это сейчас 17 год. Охуеть, весь завод разбомбили. Весь завод разъебали.
That is so loud, that fire.
Yeah, it's insanely loud.
Да вот сейчас.
Here's another clip of it, a little bit quieter.
Hell, it's loud from even like a mile or two away.
Bro, everyone in Samara, what's that hissing noise? Like looking at the giant smoke plume. Oh, man.
Oh, somebody just peeled out. Did you hear that? Somebody just like peeled out around that corner.
Bro, they went, oh, my gas! Like, dang, bro, they were!
They're peeling out.
Bro, they peeling. Bro, the Ukrainians whipped out a flyby on the refinery, and the local govniks are whipping out a drive-by on the other govniks. But we also got to see this clip as well. Oh, that's a Liudi.
Air defense ineffective.
Look, it's a Liudi. Oh my god, it's flying. Oh, it's diving. Oh my god, it hit.
Все, пизда.
And they got it.
Zero air defense, man. Zero air defense. It's crazy, honestly.
Man, what the dog doing? And then we have one more clip. And this is the one of the fire brigade. Man, they aren't even close. They're like 5 miles away. Like, what do we do? It's like you drive to the fire.
They're a little bit chicken.
Like, the Russians are like, why aren't you over there? Aren't you the firefighters? Like, fire prevention. We do not fight the fires. We just try and prevent them. And then when they happen, we watch.
Also, by the way, let me pull up real quick. Samara Refinery. Let's see how much of a output this thing gives right here.
It's fairly significant.
Samara Refinery, Russia. Let's see here. So trying to get some quick numbers on it. Let's see.
Quick
I'll have to do some
maths.
looking. They're not making this easy on me.
But nevertheless, the fire is significant. And I gotta tell y'all, folks, that was one hell of a fire. Can't we all agree? But moving on from that.
Okay. Oh, wait. I got it. So this is the Novokubashevsk refinery in Russia's Samar Oblast. It has a capacity of 8.3 million metric tons of oil per year. So I don't have the percentage, but just on the metric tons of output, this is a very large facility, one of Russia's biggest, actually. So the entire thing's on fire. You saw multiple different impacts there at pretty much the entire length of the plant. So that's one of the more extensive strikes I've seen on any of the refineries. So that one might be out of action for months, actually, based on the amount of hits that it had.
Yeah, I would have to say, it seems like it might be. That's also a significant refinery, actually, it sounded like. It doesn't sound like it was just a minor hit.
No, it was definitely a big one.
Also, man, I like these goofy town names. Novokubashevsk. Why is it called that?
I don't know.
Also, let's look at the local hotel. They have one here. The Yelly. Look! The Yelly! Let's take a look. Oh, this is where the KGB executed political dissidents. They drowned them in that pool, too. They have... The chessboard on the floor represents that you're nothing but a pawn in the game for the FSB and the KGB. Someone's riding a sled down a hill. That is what they call the hot box. That's where they heat you up to make you confess your crimes.
Gotta like the go hot box on the weekend.
Bro, you gotta include those noises. But also, they put a little heart and ketchup with some buttered noodles. Something from the political dissidents, some cucumbers and quinoa, it looks like.
Oh, that's a wonderful meal.
Bro, the Russians are living and eating like they're still in the Great Patriotic War. What the hell is this?
They have some tea, some mystery meat, 3 eggs, 4 thinly Mickey Mouse slices of cucumber. Like those, I've never seen cucumber sliced that thin. You can literally see transparently through to the next piece. Like they've sliced that. So pull up that Mickey Mouse bean that was cut like real thin. Like pull that up. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That old Mickey Mouse cartoon. Here he is. Look. Look
this,
at the toast.
This slice of bread, like that one. Those are the cucumbers, dude. They're literally see-through.
Yeah, and also Mickey was on hard times when he cut that bread that thin. Like he was really on tough times. This was so tough that it literally sent the duck into a rage. Like the duck was about to go take people out over this. Like look at that. Like he went crazy. That's the Russian. That's the Russians right now. They're on the verge of that. They're like right on the edge of snapping.
Bruh, hold up. Bruh, that's your average North Korean. Like, it's like
oh, no. Your average Russian today is right there. Look at him.
Bro, that's your average Russian when the gas supplies run out and they can't just go fill up, a snootful from the local pump at the gas station. That's what they start looking like. Oh, man. Bro, honestly, though, man, that duck was wild. But beyond
that's going to be the Russians for long. If they run out of gas, run out of food, run out of everything, and they're all going bankrupt, they can't borrow money because the interest rate's too high, and they're bankrupting their companies. I mean, you're going to see them. They're going to be like this duck.
I'm not going to lie, man. I liked it back in the day when Disney was real instead of the millennial version of Disney that exists nowadays where they're like, we are young. Hey,
man.
Oh,
if Disney was like this today, man, like showing the struggles of like the depression and stuff like that, like this cartoon was based on, this would never make it through the editing process. They would cancel this out. They would say, oh, the duck's too violent. We can't show that duck being violent. People don't get violent in real life. Like we got to shield the children from this. I liked it. Like I remember watching it as a child thinking, oh damn, like the depression was bad. I didn't think, oh, this has traumatized me. That
wasn't even the depression. That was just a Jack and the Beanstalk story.
No, I think it was like reminiscent of the Depressions, what they based it on. They were showing like, the cow outside and stuff like that, the hardship. I mean, there's even dust outside and stuff like that based on it.
I mean, maybe, but also look at this. This is the London apartment hotel. They give you that kind of luxury. What does it look like? Ah, yes. This is where the NKVD during Beria's era was torturing political dissidents down the street. Not really different. The shower. Oh my God. Wow. That is one tiny shower curtain. Like, I guess, like, most of your body is, like, stuck in the ceiling at this height. Also, why is that toilet lid so long?
Hell if I know, man.
Bro, that's for Lavrov to drink out of, so I can fit his horse face up in that thing. Jeez, dude, why is the lighting so weird in all of these pictures? I'm not gonna lie, folks. Every time we ever look at Russia in actual microscopic detail, it is so. This is quite truly from like one of those horror podcasts where you hear like that guy reading. And then the next thing I saw in the closet scarred me for life. You know, something like that. This is like the picture that they'd use. This is rough. This is the country some people go to, folks, by the way, for a vacation. And then they get arrested for spying. They're going to see this. I don't understand it. Also, what does the local railroad station look like?
Also, by the way, just another piece of information, sort of getting back to our story about the refinery in Samara getting hit that we just saw on video. Apparently, based on an up-close view of the drone that was striking that plant, it appears to be an upgraded version of the Leody drone that Ukraine's been using. It looks like it doesn't have a chassis to the drone. It looks like it's been modified to be more lightweight, maybe. It appears to be. It's kind of hard to tell. The pictures are a little bit grainy, but I'll repost this real quick. It's an up-close picture of the drone you can take a look at.
Ah, yes. Let us take a look at the drone. Let's take a look. Let's see here. Oh, that kind of looks like a normal Leody, really.
I don't know. It looks like it's missing something underneath it. It doesn't look normal to me.
Let's take a gander. Might be missing the landing gear. No, there's the landing gear. You can actually see them right there, like very faded, but they're there. I think this might be trying to stretch. This looks like a normal Leody. Also, it wouldn't make any sense for them to not have landing gear because it would be probably less efficient to have this thing rocket assisted than to just add landing gear.
Maybe so. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think that might be, like, the poster might be stretching to say that it's, like, a modified version. It's so grainy, you can hardly even tell anything about it. But moving on from that, and on out of the area of Samara, we also do have another piece of additional news down near the area of Kherson. The Russians lost a grad today. Aren't they very grad? But they did lose another MLRS from a drone strike, so another MLRS has been destroyed. And so with that, folks, it's now time for us to move on up into Kyiv to cover the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, as of today. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Здоров'я, шановні українці. Щойно говорив з Ольгою Стефанішиною, тепер вже новим послом України в Сполучених Штатах Америки. Формальні процедури завершені. Сьогодні я підписав указ про призначення посла. Визначив ключові завдання для оновлення роботи нашого посольства. І головне – реалізувати повністю всі домовленості з Вашингтоном. Домовленості наші з президентом Трампом. І передусім в оборонній сфері. Багато в чому саме від відносин з Америкою залежить довготривале гарантування безпеки України. На столі дві українські пропозиції. Це сильні пропозиції. Це угода про зброю для України, це угода про сучасні дрони для Сполучених Штатів. І ми розраховуємо на швидкий рух у відносинах. Я вдячний Оксані Маркаровій. Оксана представляла Україну у Вашингтоні протягом всіх цих років повномасштабної війни. Дуже складна місія, і Україну завжди чули в Сполучених Штатах. Я хочу подякувати за цю роботу. Ми вже говорили про подальшу взаємодію, і я запропонував Оксані Маркаровій і надалі бути в команді. Працювати заради України. Сьогодні ж триває дипломатична робота нашого офісу, МЗС, РНБО з партнерами, які підтримують необхідність формату на рівні лідерів, формату для закінчення війни. Рівень лідерів дозволяє говорити про ключові питання. Саме цей рівень нам потрібен. Всі ми бачимо дуже нахабні негативні сигнали з Москви щодо перемовин. Росіяни не збираються виконувати те, що обіцяли Сполученим Штатам Америки, обіцяли і іншим в світі, хто наполягає на припиненні вбивств і на реальній дипломатії. Треба тиснути Треба примушувати Росію до реальних кроків. Росія повинна закінчити війну, яку почала, яку продовжує. Відповідь від них має бути. Їх треба дотиснути до правильної відповіді. Це залежить від Америки, від усіх тих, хто вважає цю війну дійсно неправильною. Ми зі свого боку будемо максимально готові з майданчиками, які готові прийняти зустріч і гарантувати ефективну дипломатію. Вчора Андрій Єрмак та Рустем Умєров були на зустрічах в Катарі, зокрема щодо посередництва. Сьогодні були зустрічі в Саудівській Аравії. Я дякую за підтримку. Завтра зустрічі в Швейцарії. В п'ятницю Сполучені Штати Америки, Нью-Йорк. Зустрічі з командою президента Трампа. Будуть залучені всі, хто працює над змістом безпекових гарантій. Військові, політичні, економічні компоненти гарантій безпеки. Завдання – прискоритись максимально, щоб це було теж важелем. Важелем впливу росіяни мають бачити, наскільки серйозно світ налаштований та наскільки поганими будуть наслідки для Росії, якщо війна буде продовжуватись. Сьогодні у мене була доповідь керівника служби зовнішньої розвідки України Олега Іващенка, в тому числі про санкції, які наступні кроки у санкціях потрібні, які конкретно російські юридичні особи мають бути заблоковані, на які фізичні особи потрібен тиск, які схеми обходу санкцій ще, на жаль, працюють. Всю цю інформацію, яка є у нашої зовнішньої розвідки, ми передамо партнерам, передусім з групи 7. З їхнього боку є готовність посилювати санкції. Ще одне. Я хочу подякувати усім ремонтним бригадам, нашим енергетикам, комунальним службам, рятувальникам ДСНС України, нашим поліцейським, всім, хто залучений до ліквідації наслідків російських ударів. Полтавщина, Сумщина, Чернігівщина, Харківщина, Дніпровщина, Донеччина, Запоріжжя, Херсонщина. Всюди наші служби реагують, всюди надають допомогу. Були влучання по енергетиці і вчора, і в ніч на сьогодні. Швидко відновлюємо енергопостачання. Роботи ще йдуть. Я дякую кожному, хто працює заради наших людей, заради нашої держави. Дякую всім, хто захищає Україну. Слава Україні!
Героям слава. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine here on day 1281 of the news from around the world. And that is going to be moving us on into the second segment of this stream tonight, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And, oh, buddy, folks, is it a fun time? We get to talk about literally anything and everything, as long as it's not politics, religion, climate change, or is the A-10 viable in the modern battlefield? I don't know why that was such a divisive topic, but it was, so it had to be added. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on into all of the great questions that we have tonight. I've got to say, folks, that it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for all of y'all once again tonight. I also have to say that it is even more shocking that tonight's stream reached a peak viewership of 17.3 thousand people. And so far, We've had 140,000 views so far. It is quite consistent that the Enforcer channel is actually outdoing these days mainstream news organizations in the ratings on YouTube. That is not that far out there to say that that's easily done nowadays. Look at that. There's the whole of Fox News down there. And we're up at spot number 66 in the top 100.
And we don't even have a budget.
And we don't even have shitty writers.
Man, we come up with our crappy jokes on the spot for free.
We come up with them on the spot. We don't have to have a whole bunch of people feed shitty jokes to us. We just come up with them, no thought included. And no legal fees. So, hey, but beyond that, it is something to say that the Enforcer channel is beating out most mainstream news organizations on YouTube at this point. And I got to thank you all for being here and once again choosing this channel to be your priority source of news. If y'all have enjoyed it again tonight, or if you're new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe. You are joining a growing channel. A channel that has been growing for years now, and is soon to reach 500,000 subscribers. We're getting there, folks. 1,000 subscribers at a time. time. And so hopefully, folks, y'all will subscribe, because each one of y'all that subscribes, the closer we get to 500,000, which is kind of cool to think that we'll have a 500,000 followers here on the channel. And so, with that, folks, I gotta say, a huge thanks to all of y'all so much once again. And I also gotta say, folks, it is kind of a little wild to think that we do beat out Fox News for viewership on YouTube now, like, fairly normally. In fact, we beat most of them out. As a matter of fact, I don't think... Well, there's PBS NewsHour. There's another one. And, oh, we beat out Megyn Kelly. But she's not really, like, I don't really know if she's even news anymore. Like, it's more like political commentary. But anyone that beats us out above us, that's a legitimate mainstream news sort of thing. Fox 9 Minneapolis got more views than the actual Fox News Network and Associated Press did.
Well, they had a little bit of a tragedy there. I think that's probably why.
Oh, yeah, they did. But beyond that, it does appear that we are one of the top in the news, so please make sure to subscribe if you would like to. We cover news each and every single day, 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of global news developments. A lot of the stuff you will never even hear in the mainstream media. Also, by the way, folks, also CNN doesn't even register Scooter. They're not even in the top 100. That's kind of funny. But they did stream. It's just that they weren't in the top 100 to even be shown. Also, by the way...
I bet you Fox News hadn't shown you nothing like this before. You know, I got to show y'all something else real quick while we're still sort of like fresh on the topic a little bit. The situation in Russia right now at Samara is apocalyptic. And for sure, show them this most recent video that just came out right here. It's bad. Like, look at this. I mean, that glow off the smoke is wild. Like, it's lighting up the entire local town.
That is a lot. So, everyone, what we get from this is that refinery is gone. it is completely gone. So, that's good to know. Hundreds of thousands of barrels of produced refined fuel products down the drain. Gone. Finished. Never be around. But still... With that, hope that does address that well, at least best we can. And also, by the way, folks, one more thing really quickly. One more thing we have to show y'all is, I actually forgot. I completely forgot it, because going to this, it made me lose my train of thought. But that was still a significant explosion, and we will be making sure to touch up on it every once in a while and show y'all what's going on out there in Samara. But with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And so, Matthew, please take it away.
All right. And also, by the way, I'm seeing some more footage coming out right now, but it's showing the Afipsky refinery on fire in Krasnodar. I think we've already shown that one here on the stream before. So it looks like that one's still burning as well. So we won't show that. It's really not new footage. So we'll keep an eye out. It looks like the footage is coming out for the daylight hours in Russia right now, because of course it is daylight there now. So I'll be watching to see if we can get some more of that footage to show y'all before the stream ends, because it looks like these were some massive hits this time by Ukraine on the oil refineries. But jumping into our super chat once again and jumping right back into it, our first one here goes to someone that's been supporting the channel bigly over the last few weeks, and it is LC39A, and he puts in a $146 donation this time. A very generous support, and the largest support of the night, actually. And a big shout out to you, good sir, for that support once again. And he said, "Good morning, men."
Hey, good morning, USA. And I got to say a huge thanks to you for the massive support, LC39A. A huge good morning to you. I hope that you've been having a swell day so far. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks like you have helped us to keep this thing running. And I got to say a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I got to say, you've been throwing in massive support to this channel for weeks at this point. Huge amounts of support. We are massively appreciative of that, and we've got to thank you incredibly for helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep our news reporting rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on into the next one.
All right, so once again, a big shout out to LC39A for that support. And we also have our second super chat here, which goes to Pippi Longsocks, actually, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Pippi, for that $100 support. And we do appreciate that very much. And they said, LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army, Pippi Longsocks. I got to thank you massively for the support and having long socks, a very important thing. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because thanks to folks like you, we too can afford long socks. Long socks, the ones that go up to your knees, the ones that you have to wear in formal suits, those socks, we get to wear those. And I got to thank you massively once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would also not be able to afford those long socks that make us distinct. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Bob Hudak. Bob puts in a 50, by the way, and thank you very much, Bob, for that generous support as well, and also helping to keep the channel going. And Bob said, thanks so much for the best coverage anywhere.
And thank you for enjoying our coverage. We like to think it's some of the best, maybe the greatest. Some people have been saying, but beyond that, I got to say that we are more than happy to run the show. It's an absolute honor and a really high praise to know that every single night we can expect to get hundreds of thousands of people on this stream to listen to our coverage of the news. That's a really big and huge high honor. And I got to say a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Bob Hudak, we would not be able to keep this channel running and we wouldn't be able to make this kind of coverage possible. So thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, One Digital Watcher said these guys strive for accuracy. Like, seriously speaking, like, we really do. Like, that is something we've taken great pride in, is being accurate. And also, we've tried to get better with our predictions, too, because obviously predictions are a little bit of a sketchy game because you can never predict things with a 100% accuracy, no matter how informed you are about anything, especially in world politics with the very uncertain environment we live in today with leadership that really isn't sure where they really stand in the world. It's really hard to predict anything anymore, but we do strive for accuracy. And the few times that we've gotten anything wrong, we do issue corrections on the air for it and basically let y'all know that we got it wrong. We don't try to shy away from it or try to just, gloss over it like we didn't, because it's better to acknowledge it than to simply let it, go into the wind. At least that's our motto. That's why we've done it before. So we take great pride in that, actually. But jumping into our next super chat, this one goes to Slamina Evil, who puts in a $28 donation. And thank you very much as well, Slamina Evil, for that support. They said, why is Russia attacking Pripyat? And does Putin not like the Monolith from the Stalker series? And also, as a Monolith fan, I think they could beat a Russian unit in this war if they were real, and if they could, have their real tech too.
I got to thank you for the support, Slamming Evil. Me personally, I don't really know a lot about the Stalker series. I know that a lot of people love the Stalker series because it's pretty cool, and I've heard a lot of great things about it. But me personally, I've just never gotten around to playing it.
Isn't that Ukrainian made?
Yeah, it's actually Ukrainian made. They actually delayed the release of the game because of the war. Like a couple of the people in the dev team actually were in the Ukrainian army and were mobilized when the war began, so they had to delay the release of the second game. So it's really cool, actually. Let me go pull up Stalker. Since it's a Ukrainian game, it'd probably be a cool thing to talk about. Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. And this one released in 2024. Pretty popular game from what I've heard. A lot of people have liked it. Some people complained about a couple of things, like it's kind of buggy, like the devs weren't literally involved in a war when the game was put out. But a lot of people have said great things about it. Me personally, unfortunately, I've never played it. But it did look cool, and I did hear a lot of people say some good things about it. And so I was like, hey, that's neat. That's pretty cool. But sadly, I saw Slam and Evil say, what? You never played the original series, at least? I don't really play a lot of big title games. Like, I hardly even play Battlefield or Call of Duty at all. I generally play games that are like railroad based or top down strategy sort of a deal. So they're not really like huge title games. So it really is rare that I play a game like this. Not that I don't like them. Like, I think they're pretty interesting. It's just that it's not really my style of game is the best way to say it. But still, I think it's really neat. One game, though, that I have been playing a lot recently has been the Broken Arrow. And I have heard that apparently they're planning on adding some extra stuff into the game. Do not listen to the ratings. The ratings, I don't know why they're that low. It's this thing. It's this whole game politics thing that's going on. But beyond that, Broken Arrow, the game is pretty cool. I think they're going to be adding the Polish in the future, which I think is really cool. But right now it's just the Americans and the Russians in that game. But beyond that, I would have to say that generally I would not know about the monoliths a lot because I have not played Stalker. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help make this thing possible. I also see some people talking about the games that I play. And Matthew generally plays Call of Duty. I think.
Not anymore.
Oh, not anymore?
No, I haven't been playing games for like on Xbox for like over a month now. I got over that real quick. I just don't have really a bandwidth for playing games anymore. I don't know why. I just don't have a bandwidth for it. So all I do is work.
Work. But beyond that, I see some people asking about the games that I play. Are you a fan of Tropico? Kinda. Generally, I like the games where it's really in depth. Like Manor Lords. Manor Lords was a pretty good game for city development and also like warfare. I liked how it was like kind of micromanaging to an extent. I like that sort of a thing. Broken Arrow is really good. Someone asked, is it better than Warno? In my opinion, yes. I think that Broken Arrow is better than Warno. It has more features, and I find that to be neat. And also it's modern day, which is a game that I've been looking for a long time, is a game like that that's based in the modern day. Let's see. I played Transport Fever, like Transport Fever 2. That's a really cool game. Love that game to pieces. And they're coming out with Transport Fever 3 soon, so I'm really hyped for that. Let's see, what else? War Thunder is a game that I play here and there. Not often. I used to play it religiously, not really often anymore. And then I play railroad games like Railroader or Train Sim World or something like that. Those are really fun games to me. But recently I haven't played, and Broken Arrow has been literally all I do in my free time now because I love that game and I love the concept of it. Because it really, it applies to a lot of what I talk about here on the show. Like with the kind of top-down general sort of strategy side of things. And I love that kind of stuff. So whenever a game represents that well, or close to what it is in real life, I'm like, wow, this is a really great game. I really like it. But generally,
honestly, though, I'll get back into video game playing whenever one of these two games comes out, GTA 6 or Fallout 5. I'll play either one of those games, like when they eventually come out. I'm not sure when Fallout 5 is coming out, but we do know when GTA 6 is coming out, sometimes next year, hopefully. So if it comes out, I'll be playing it. But until then, I'm probably going to be off the games.
Yeah, I always intermittently play games because there's nothing else to do. Well, might as well play a game here and there. Let's see. Some people said Squad. Squad is actually a pretty fun game. 6 Days in Fallujah is pretty good if you have a gang of friends to play it with. Ostfront Gates of Hell is really good. Arma Reforger is pretty interesting, but it's kind of like walking simulator. I hate Tarkov. Saw someone say Tarkov? I hate Tarkov. Tarkov is way too punishing, at least how it used to be, and also the cheaters got insane, like the hackers did. I absolutely hated the game by the time I stopped playing it. So like Tarkov killed its opinion to me itself, and is the best way to describe it. It was fun when I first started playing it, but then it went downhill over the next few years, and I just completely stopped. Let's see here. I see biggest fans say Broken Arrow low ratings is because of poor optimization. Yeah, it's kind of like cancel culture and it's now extended into ratings. People just bomb the ratings on video games. And I understood that when it was done once or twice, but now people do that on everything, and it's really punishing to these game developers because it turns people away from getting the game. It's a great game with small issues right now that they've already admitted that they're working on fixing. It's just that they didn't expect those to be problems because this is the first game they ever put out, and they're trying to fix them, and then people are punishing them for that, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. I see a lot of people talking about games. Also, by the way, folks, I saw a super chat. I think we're going to get up to it here in the latter part of the stream, but I saw a super chat saying, release the gaming content. And I'm not wanting to create a second channel that would make gaming content. This will probably be put on Patreon for free. But would y'all be interested in even seeing me or Matthew play a video game? I generally feel like that whole thing's overblown. Everyone has a gaming channel. But if people would be interested in that, maybe we could put out something for y'all to see somewhere. It wouldn't be anything on this channel or a second channel. It'd probably be on Patreon or something every once in a while, very rarely. But that was something I was like, huh, that's interesting. But anyways, beyond that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to Just a Plumber 3, and he puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Just a Plumber, for that support once again. He said forget about those files, those Mr. E files. Release the Enforcer gaming videos, and that was the super chat you were talking about, by the way.
Right, look at that, right there. Yeah. Well, I think it was support Just a Plumber, and actually, I'm asking the audience about that right now, and it looks like the answers are mixed. Some people are saying flat out no, and some people are saying yes. But it's it's a kind of a mixed bag with that. Me personally, when I play games, I'm just doing it to relax, and I think it would kind of kill the whole side of relaxation if I started to have to film it and put it out. Because this whole thing is very intensive on the news side of things. Just doing the stream is pretty mentally exhausting. So generally, whenever it's over, I just like to kind of like huddle in my corner, get quiet, and mentally prepare to do this again. But maybe if people are interested enough, maybe I put it out here and there on a Patreon post or something like that. But it wouldn't be on it wouldn't be on this main channel or a second channel. I wouldn't put it out on YouTube, because like my honest 2 cents on that, just for everyone to know, everyone and their dog out there has a gaming channel, and I just don't really get it. Because like it's like everyone can just play these games. It's not like, NFL or anything where you have to be really good at football. You can just play the game yourself. And also, a lot of people don't really add any fun or interesting commentary into it. So I'm like, what's the point? Like, I don't really know. Like, I kind of find that whole thing to be a little bit overblown.
I don't know where you're expecting to get the time to do that anyway, because
Yeah.
we're already swamped. We're already swamped as it is. So unless you're planning on just, cutting down a few hours of sleep a night, I'm not sure when you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd film whenever I'm just playing a game for fun, but I really don't talk a lot. I'd have to, like, think a lot mentally to talk, and most of it would just be informational crap I'd be spewing out. I don't really think I'd actually be that interesting doing a gaming thing, really, to be honest with y'all.
I think that people would much rather see something like documentaries or in-person stuff or something like that when we get settled in our new place, of course, because I'll be honest with you, it's going to be impossible to do anything extra, like create a second channel or do anything like that, or even merch, until we get settled in our new location. Because from now until the end of October and a little bit into September, it's a ton of like planning work behind the scenes to make sure we can move our HQ. So until then, nothing crazy is going to be happening on the channel side of things when it comes to like expanding the channel or creating a second channel or something like that. But after that, though, we're planning on hitting the ground running.
Yeah, hopefully that would be the case. But with that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Trism666, who's a channel legend, by the way. He puts in a $25 donation, and thank you very much, Trism, for that support. They said, has Russia redeployed the submarines they had docked? And yes. And also, does Russia still have any active Alpha subs? And thanks for everything you guys do and keeping us informed as well. And LSA.
I do not believe that they have any active Alpha class submarines. Let me check that. Yes, all of them have been retired because these had some severe issues with cracking, stress cracking. The technology to make a submarine out of titanium really didn't exist then, and it kind of doesn't really exist now. So this was an incredibly ambitious submarine from the outset. It was the fastest one ever made, but it had a lot of issues. One, the hull would stress fracture endlessly, and two, these things also made loads of noise. It had one singular screw, which is this one right here. These little ones don't count. This is the main propulsion screw. It had one screw, and when that thing was at full cavitation, or full turns per minute, that thing rattled like hell. It made loads of noise. So it didn't even matter if this thing was super fast. It made so much noise that a anti-submarine patrol aircraft could chase it down and kill it. So practically obsolete from its outset. So all these things have been retired. The only thing that looks close to it that exists nowadays is the let's see. What was the other submarine, Matthew, that I was talking about at the beginning of the stream? The one that looked like that? I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Can't recall, to be honest with you.
I can't recall the name of the thing either, folks. I hate to say that, but the other one that looks somewhat similar to this, which isn't the Yasin class. I'm sorry, folks. I'm having like a hard time recollecting the name of that class of submarine. It's very similar looking, but it's not made out of titanium. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well. But the submarines are underway. Some of the Yasin class submarines are underway. But this one's been completely retired because it was just too cost exorbitant to try and operate these. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to, let's see, this one goes to Bob Hudak once again. He puts in a 100 this time, and huge thanks to you, Bob, for that extra $100 support right there. And we do appreciate that very much. It's one of our largest super chats of the night, by the way, and we appreciate that very much. No comment to address, though, but we do appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you massively, Bob Hudak, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running. He didn't throw in a comment, but the support is incredible, and it does help us to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. So a massive
wait. He left a comment separate of the super chat. He said, another gift for the jokes and the games are the best.
Hey, thank you so much for the kind words, Bob Hudak. And I gotta say, maybe we'll put out some gaming content on the Patreon, maybe like once or twice, maybe a couple of times, maybe something like that. And I gotta thank you for enjoying our jokes. Some people like them, some people hate them, but comedy isn't for everyone. And I don't really know how people don't get that. It's like, like every comedian isn't loved by everyone out there, like some people don't get a comedian's style. And there's always some people out there who are like, oh, the Enforcer's joke sucks. It's like, if our jokes sucked that badly, like I'll just be honest with you all, the way that I look at it, it's like if our jokes sucked that badly, they'd run people away. We're one of the largest channels that covers this kind of stuff. So we can't be doing that bad. The jokes have got to be funny to someone because there's a lot of people who watch this thing. So I do thank you massively for the support, Bob Hudak, and massive praise and thanks for our jokes. I thank you for enjoying them because we come up with them on the spot and it's kind of like a hit or miss thing. We don't really do any like prep or writing on those. We just do them on the spot and pray to God that they actually end up being good. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Richard Ager, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Richard, as well, for that $20 support and being a longtime channel legend. He said, great work, gents, and thanks. And it seems I can send small amounts.
Hey, thank you so much for the support and helping the show to keep on running. Richard Ager. And I gotta say, that's a good thing to hear that you can send small amounts. And I think that's actually quite a big amount. $20 is not a small amount of money. And I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Because it is folks like you who help to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And also, by the way, folks, I just saw everyone say the Akula class. Yeah, it is the Akula class. I totally forgot about it. But these submarines actually do look similar to the Alpha class. Let me go get the Alpha class. See, the Alpha class, the Akula, somewhat similar, like, to a sense. The conning towers, or the sails, are pretty much identical, and the fact that they're single-screw submarines, somewhat identical there as well. But beyond that, you can see that there are major design differences between the two, to some degrees, but still somewhat similar looking to me. But beyond that, I thank everyone for helping me to remember the name of the submarine, Akula. It completely missed me, and Akula is Russian for what type of animal, Matthew? What do you think akula is the word for in Russian?
Is that like a breed of dog?
It's a shark.
Oh.
And then this one is Russian for Hustlers University, Alpha class.
Oh,
What color is your
Alpha,
submarine? Like it.
Mine's nuclear colored.
Man, let's see here. Man, the Russian word for it was liar, so it's Putin.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That's an honestly good name right there, the liar.
Man, that's crazy, honestly. Like, it's actually crazy.
Isn't that like the same thing as a sitar?
I think.
Something like that. It's like a string instrument, I think.
Well, there's a lyre. It's like a yoke lute.
Are they blowing on it?
Nah, they ain't blowing it. They play
okay.
it.
I really couldn't see the thing. That's reserved for Hot Dog Man. Let's see here. Yeah, it's a stringed instrument, actually, so I was right. It is like I guess like a sitar, kind of.
Oh, man, look at that. Like, they're not blowing it, they're fingering it. So, there's a big difference. But beyond that, well, there's different things you do with instruments, but beyond that, let's see here. Oh, they're talking about the history of this thing. Or rot. Like, man, this is the German rot. It looks like one, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit, somewhat. Those stringed instruments can get weird, like balalaikas.
This thing looks like a washboard, really.
Yeah, it looks like a Russian instrument.
Kind of, yeah, it kind of does. But anyways, with that, all that stuff is reserved for the Hot Dog Man. The romps in the woods and everything. That's a Hot Dog Man kind of a thing. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Jody Mandelias, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Jody, as well, for that support. And Jody said, thanks as always for the excellent coverage of the current events and LSA, LSA, LSA.
Hey, and I got to thank you massively for support, Jody Mandelias. And I got to say, a big thanks to you once again for enjoying our coverage of these events and the news from around the world. And I gotta say, a massive thanks to you once again for being a part of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And also, really quickly, I'm gonna say that I gotta thank you for enjoying our coverage. Because you know what was crazy, folks? You know what was crazy? People in our countdown. I don't know what it is, but the countdown allows some people to say crazy stuff. And there were people coming in the countdown going, is this clickbait? I haven't heard about this at all on Fox or CNN. It's like, we're not Fox or CNN. Like, I don't know if people appreciate that still. It's like, the reason why we're doing better than Fox News in the ratings these days is because we're not Fox News. We don't do lazy work and just copy mainstream news organizations and parrot them. We come up with our own stuff. Like, we actually cover real news. Like, and it's a big thing. So it's like, I don't know why in the world some people are always like, wow, it's crazy. Like, two guys going out of their way to actually source real news of what actually happened. Wow, that's unbelievable. Fox and CNN didn't cover it, so it just can't be real. It's like, I don't know how some people are like that room temperature, because it's like, how in the world can you end up coming up with something like that? I don't even know. It's like we've been doing this for so long that we are one of the biggest names in news on YouTube. It's like, a lot of, like, we have a decent amount of credit built up at this point that everything that we report is actually accurate every night. It's like, I don't know what is up with some people still thinking, I don't know if I believe the validity of this channel. It's like, why not? It's like, we've given no reason for anyone to doubt us before. Every single thumbnail and title we put out, it's like legitimately what's going on. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, because it still blows me away how we have been here for us disconnected.
Oh no,
the authorities didn't like that one. Like, the authorities didn't like that one, but we're back. But beyond that, it always just blows me away how we've been here for almost 4 years and we've built up a lot of credibility, and still people want to say, because the sucky news networks didn't cover it, it's not real. It's like, I don't even know how in the world that works. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support, Jody Manadlees, and helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to George A. And George puts in a $20 donation. Thank you, George, as well, for that support. He said, I thought the Confederate flag was based on the cross of St. Andrew, the apostle martyr to the Slavs, as the Novaya Russia and the Russian Navy flag is.
And I thank you for the support, but there's actually a bit of a confusion about the Confederate flag. There's a lot of it out there that exists, because what a lot of people call the Confederate flag isn't even the Confederate flag, nor did it ever really exist in real history. The real Confederate flag actually looks like this. It's practically the flag of the state of Georgia. And it actually went through like multiple different design iterations through the Civil War. Here's all of the different variants that they had pre-Civil War. This is also their battle flag that they originally had, which had that thing in the corner. Like, I don't really know how to describe it, like what a lot of people would call the rebel flag, but most of the flag was white. And that started to create issues because every single time a Confederate brigade was advancing on the field, the Union was like, are they surrendering or are they fighting? Because it was hard to tell because most of the flag was solid white. And then they'd find out that they weren't surrendering most of the time. So then they came up with this one, which had this big red area added to it to make it clear that they weren't surrendering and that they were actually fighting, because there was a lot of confusion with that. The naval ensign is the one that a lot of people end up getting confused. And also there's a gazillion other variants of it. But the naval ensign, which I'm trying to find here really quickly, is the one that a lot of people get confused with, and this one was never really used. Also, I see some people saying sound. Refresh, it'll work. But this is the one that was
refresh your page. By the way, apparently after that OBS disconnected, people were having sound issues where you're like cutting out every 5 seconds. Refresh your whole YouTube page, or just like close it and reopen it. It should fix it.
Yeah, but beyond that, this is the one that a lot of people say is the Confederate flag. It's not even the Confederate flag. This is like a fiction of the modern day, because it was the only part of the flag that actually had any real design to it. But it's not, from what I know, it's not really inspired off of the Nova Russia flag at all. They're completely different in terms of their origins, but I'd have to look into the exact history of it, because I'm not exactly a Confederate flag sort of an expert. Like, I know that they're similar looking, but they're also different to an extent. So I hope that does address that the best I can. At least from my knowledge of history is involving the Confederate flag and the flag of Nova Russia. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And also, really quickly, Matthew, ask Jake B. Chillin what he means by that really quickly. Because I don't know what he's trying to insinuate by his comment there in the live chat. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Carter's MG, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you, Carter's, as well for that support. He said, I love the dedication and LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Carter's MG. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because we thank you for enjoying our dedication. We're here every single day. It's like clockwork. We practically never miss a show, and we are always honored and very appreciative to know that folks enjoy this channel and help us to keep this thing running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next ones go to Old Warrior, a channel legend. He throws in 2 super chats, by the way, 2 $20 donations. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for that generous support as well. He said, for the first time since the recent war, India notified Pakistan through diplomatic channels that they would release water from the dams to avoid overtopping, as the first diplomatic comms between them since the recent conflict. And nearly 800 people have died since 6/26 in Pakistan from flooding due to heavy monsoons affecting both India and Pakistan. And in Pakistan, over 100,000 people evacuated, and there is no current water shortage in Pakistan at the moment.
I thank you for sharing that, Old Warrior. We actually didn't hear about that today, but that is interesting to know, and that may actually stymie or avoid a conflict, at least for now. But I still have a feeling there will be a conflict in the future, because considering that there isn't an official water treaty between the two countries anymore, that will most likely create the sort of leeway to create another conflict over that fact. But I do thank you for support and sharing that, and it does appear, or sound, at least based off of the information in the moment, that war has been averted. So a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And I thank you for sharing that critical information and news. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Snowy, who puts in an 11. And thank you, Snowy, very much for that support. They said, one flamingo is happy and says to the other, 19 flamingos, nice Kerch Bridge. And also, what do you think is going to happen to the Kerch Bridge soon? Do you think the flamingo is going to hit it? And what are your thoughts?
I would have to say that a flamingo may be attempted to hit the Kerch Bridge, but whether it would make it through is another question. A flamingo hitting the Kerch, or really anything trying to hit the Kerch at this point, is going to be pretty hard, because they have a massive air defense perimeter around the bridge. It's one of the only well-defended things in Russia in the entirety of the war, or in occupied territory. So I think that while a flamingo could be tried to be used to hit the bridge, I don't really think that that's going to successfully hit it. It most likely would get shot down in the process. So that would be my 2 cents on that, is that I don't really think that particular sort of analysis doesn't really stand up to scrutiny. It really sounds like that's wishful thinking. Because hell, we saw a multiple thousand-pound explosive was blown up on a column of the bridge that was planted there by sappers or some sort of a submersible, and it didn't even really do a lot of damage. Every single drone attack against the bridge, except for one, and we can't even really verify which one it is, caused no damage to the bridge. All of them have been shot down, except for one, and it looks like it caused some sort of a stress fracture in one of the arches. That is the only proof that we have of damage from the multiple attacks that have been conducted over the course of this year. So the idea of a larger flamingo, which would represent a larger radar cross-section and therefore be targeted and destroyed even earlier or farther out from the bridge, that is a fairly difficult one to say. I feel like the flamingos would be better used against less defended targets inside of Russia than tossing one at the Kerch Bridge, which in all reality has lost most, if not all, of its strategic significance at this point.
And also another thing as well, the Flamingo is larger in capacity for the amount of munitions it carries, and also it has a longer range on it. But there's nothing that is going to overwhelm air defenses, though. That's the problem. It's not a hyper fast weapon. It's not built for that, and also there's nothing stealth about it. So to be able to overcome the air defenses of the Kerch Bridge, you need one of those advantages to be able to do that. That's why everybody was hoping that maybe the Taurus missile was going to show up from Germany in Ukraine, because it was semi-stealth, and maybe that would allow it to get through the air defenses to the Kerch Bridge. But there's nothing stealth about the Flamingo. So to say that the Flamingo is suddenly different, that's not really the truth, because it really doesn't change anything. There's nothing unique about that missile that allows it to escape air defenses. So I would say with the vast amount of air defense they have around the bridge, that is the one thing in Russia that they actually defend to the teeth, is the Kerch Bridge. They're probably not going to be able to hit that. And that's why last year you didn't see Ukraine hit it either. So it's possible, but I would say the odds are pretty low.
I would say that the odds are slim to none. And also, Analysis from some other places isn't really consistently good. Like, they don't really factor in a whole bunch of things that you consider, like defenses, supplies, anything like that. It's more so just, I think this, therefore it is, which is usually what a lot of analysis out there is based on these days by, like, everybody. There isn't really a lot of qualitative stuff that goes into it. It's just, I think, therefore it is, which is a really roughshod way of doing analysis that doesn't provide any real reasonable answers, and that's usually why a lot of the predictions out there or the analysis ends up being incorrect. Not to say that all of ours is correct, but at the same time, a lot of other people get a lot of things wrong and, like, just unapologetically do it and don't even really try to refine the reasoning behind their analysis. Like, will any of Putin's mansions get hit? I mean, that's highly unlikely. Like, you know, like, a lot of people would like for that to happen, but there are loads of air defense perimeters, insanely dense air defense perimeters around a lot of Putin's residences. That's why we've never really seen a lot of them, rather than one, which caught on fire most likely from sabotage, not even a drone attack, get hit. You know, like, those sorts of things would just be really hard targets to hit.
Also, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. The Kerch Bridge is not a primary target, in my opinion, at this point. A primary target for Ukraine is exactly what they're hitting right now. They're hitting oil refineries and fuel depots. That's clearly having an impact. If you hit that Kerch Bridge and you're able to take it out for a temporary amount of time, yes, it will have an impact, but not nearly the monumental impact that hitting the refineries is going to have. Like, a totally different equation with that. And rather than it being a big propaganda victory, it's not going to be war changing just because the Kerch Bridge is hit. So while it would make a good headline, it would make good clickbait, and I'll admit it would make very good clickbait. It's not really going to be something war changing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, also, I see a lot of people saying, just you wait, they'll hit it with the new Flamingo. Nah, I can promise you folks they won't. Why in the
They'll
world?
try, I'm sure.
Like, I wouldn't even say that they try, because the worst case scenario is that thing gets shot down, breaks up over the Sea of Azov, and then they send a boat out there with a giant net to skim it off the surface and then figure out how it works. And then that could end up being a bit of an issue for them, because the Russians might try and go, hey, well, actually, we can make these things cheaply and use them against Ukraine. So they generally probably wouldn't want them to shoot one down and largely see it break up without exploding where they can recover it. They'll probably want to use it against something where it's guaranteed to hit on target and blow up. That would be my opinion. So I don't even think they would try to hit the Kerch Bridge with that thing. I would doubt it. And I know that a lot of people are going, but it's not, like, classified. It's probably using, like, you know, PVC pipes and spare plumbing. Yeah, but you still don't want the Russians to know how you make it, because if they know how you make it, they might also try to make it, because at this point, Russia's resource strapped as well. So if the Ukrainians came up with a way to create the ghetto missile, like, they're going to end up making one as well, because it's going to be easy for them to do it. And if the Ukrainians literally give them a free blueprint to put back together, because they shoot one down intact or shoot one down and it's mostly intact, they're going to do it. Like, they will also want to figure out how to wield that kind of firepower on the resource side of it being cheap, and also on the cost side of things being cheap as well. So I hope that addresses that the best I can, but I think the chances of them ever trying to hit the Kerch Bridge with that thing is going to be low. And also, by the way, folks, I'm not saying that the missile is, like, ghetto or like hood in its construction. It's probably fairly solid, but it's a lot cheaper and a lot more crude than most other Western weapon systems, like the Taurus, the Storm Shadow, the Tomahawk, or any other forms of a cruise missile of a sort that's used here in the West. So, you know, that's largely what I'm saying that for, to clarify that. But still, a big thanks to you once again for support, Snowy, and I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a very generous super chat from the Martian, by the way, another channel legend. And thank you very much, Martian, for that $100 support. And we do appreciate that very much. Of course, helping to keep the channel running. And he said, Belgium just gave Ukraine 24 F-16 fighter jets. And will Ukraine now cut loose and start hitting the troops behind the Russian lines? And Russian air radar is virtually non-existent.
That is a good question, the Martian, and it's a really hard one to actually give an answer to, because so far the Ukrainians actually have a decent amount of Western aircraft in their arsenal at this moment, including about 15 F-16s and a decent number of Mirage 2000s at this point, and we never see them using them in an offensive setting. ever. Like, it's very rare. They use them sometimes in limited seat operations, but even then, that's quite rare. So I would generally say that in my honest opinion, I would think that they're probably still going to use them primarily defensively, and also on top of that, they have to concern themselves with the amount of flight hours that these aircraft are getting under their belts and what availability of spare parts they have to keep them flying, which also limits the amount of offensive or defensive operations that any of these aircraft are able to undertake, which I think a lot of NATO countries really need to start prioritizing, because you never hear them saying that they're sending spare parts for the F-16. It's always just more F-16s, which is great to have a large number of them, but if you don't have the logistical supply chain to be able to maintain these or operate them, it's practically pointless to have a large number, because you're never able to field even a decent percentage of them at a given point. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I do thank you massively for the support of The Martian and helping this channel to keep on running, because that is absolutely massive support and helps us to keep this channel running day in and day out. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to another channel legend. It is Duncan VR, all the way from Australia, and he puts in a $14 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again, and we appreciate that very, very much. Also, Duncan, I will say this, I'm just going to note this as well, that generally speaking, we're going to shy away from that, because we're not going to try to fall into that trap right there, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, by the way, with that. So while I do appreciate the super chat, I'm going to what's the word, abdicate from it, I think, or I'm going to refrain from it, or something like that, whatever the word is. But anyways, thank you very much, Duncan, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you for support, Duncan, but I'd have to agree with Enforcer Man on that. We were actually talking about that behind the scenes. We don't even want to play into that. As far as we're concerned, it's like, it's just some guy at this point. He's insane. So, you know, it's like, it is what it is. We don't really want to feed into it anymore, because the guy feeds off of that stuff. And I'd rather let him just continue to work at the Shell gas station without giving him the chance to pay for this month's rent. So I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have one from Luke UK, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Luke, as well, for that second support of the night. He said, hello, Enforcers, and hello, LSA. And what is the Starlink that Ukraine is using? And also, can Ukraine keep fighting without it in LLT, LSA?
And I thank you so much for the support. And from what we generally know, they're using the standard Starlink system, from what I can tell. And as far as that's going, Ukraine can keep fighting without it. It's just that it'd be a little bit more difficult, and they pretty much have to transfer all of their drone operations over to being fiber optic only instead of wireless drones, which wouldn't be that much of a difficulty to do, but it would not be preferable. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, I hope that addressed it the best I can. So a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Jack, who puts in a 10. And Jack said, Enforcer Man Enforcer, am I right to say I remember Germany classified all their weapon shipments to Ukraine since 2025, so won't the Ukrainians have more secret supplies that we don't know about? And that is true. Germany has classified their weapon shipments to Ukraine. We also got some rumblings that maybe the Taurus was being shipped to Ukraine, but so far we haven't seen it being fielded. So if Ukraine has it, they're either being very secretive about it, or the Russians haven't picked up on their use of it, or it hasn't gotten there, one or the other. So I'll be honest with you, Jack, I'm leaning toward the side that maybe it hasn't arrived or Germany hasn't sent it. That's what I'm leaning toward right now, because I have a feeling the way Ukraine usually operates, if they get a new toy, they immediately use it, and they use it in mass numbers. So they usually aren't very restrained about using new weapons. They're usually pretty quick with it. So we haven't seen it, so I really doubt it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would agree with Enforcer Matt on that. They most likely have not gotten the Taurus, because they do use new weapon systems incredibly quickly, and we haven't seen them use it yet. So I'd generally be believing that they haven't gotten the Taurus, and I'd also believe that there isn't a lot provided by the Germans, at least in terms of new equipment, until we actually see it in action. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 support from Douglas L. Hemingway, by the way. And thank you very much, Douglas. He said, I guess we're watching The Hunt for Red October, the real one now.
Kind of, yeah. Like, to an extent, we kind of are. A little bit different than the movie, but kind of similar to a sense. So I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from David Croton. And David put in that 10 and said, thanks, guys, and take one from the chat. And thank you very much. And thank you, David, as well for that support. And we shall grab one from the chat. And the one in honor of David's super chat is going to go to none other than Carrion Crow, who said, would anyone actually do something if the Russians actually hit the sarcophagus?
I don't even know at this point, to be entirely honest. I hate to say that, but, you know, the current administration waffles so much, they might as well be the Dutch, the way they be putting out those Dutch waffles. And I'm not saying that the Dutch is a nation waffle; they're just known for their waffles. But actually, that's Belgium. Damn it! I just Belgian waffles.
I was about to say.
Oh my god! Oh, I'm so sorry. Did the Dutch and the Belgians? I just mixed y'all up. I'm so sorry. Totally different cultures, totally different everything. But beyond that, I guess you could say that the current administration are Belgians, the way they waffle. But now the Belgian waffles. Now that I made the joke work, but beyond that, it's impossible to say. Like I don't know if y'all can hear it in my voice, but the current administration is just wearing me out. It's impossible to analyze them. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen. It's very tiresome. It's very annoying. And on top of that, the decisions that are made are some of the most brain dead ones in foreign policy that I've ever seen. Like, no one could beat them. I have not seen. Many people have been saying that it's never been this bad in foreign policy, and at this point, I'd have to say that that's the case. So I just got to be honest with you. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say anything about them at all. Like, are we going to nuke the Russians tomorrow, or are we going to literally surrender Alaska to them, or the whole country to them? I don't know. Like, it could be either one. We could say the Ukrainians are great today, or we could say that they're also at fault for being invaded tomorrow. It's just completely hard to say. Is it capitalist for the government to nationalize a company? I mean, I don't know. I mean, by definition it is, but they said it's entirely capitalist, so who knows? It's just endless like that, and it's becoming impossible to even talk about the stuff, because then you have the little mongrels that come out that when you say something like, oh, nationalizing a company is socialist, then they want to say, no, it's not, and then they'll vehemently defend anything. So it's getting exhausting with that whole side of things. I can't even really tell you with any certainty what's going on with the U.S. government or what we'd be doing. So I hope that does address it the best I can, but that's how it's working at this point. I don't even really care to talk about them, as far as how the current administration is handling anything, because you get hyped up. It's just exhausting, because we'll listen to something and it sounds like he's about to screw the whole country over, and then that panics us over here because we're like, oh shit, this looks very bad for us in foreign policy, and then it's completely reversed, and then you feel kind of relieved, and then he does it again, and then you start freaking out again. So I'm like, I don't even know at this point. I'm just completely ignoring him, just to be entirely honest. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support, David Croton, and sponsoring a live chat, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, Bob Hudak, he did not put in a question earlier, but I saw him put a question in right now. So since he didn't put a question in his super chat earlier, let's return back to Bob's super chat real quick. And he said, what is the risk for Ukraine to false flag Belarus?
That is a good question. So the question, Bob Hudak, if I'm understanding this correctly, just to make sure, tell me if I'm right or wrong, is if the Ukrainians conduct an attack on themselves and say that the Belarusians did it to them, if I'm understanding that correctly. So if that was to happen, there is a decent amount of risk that if they did that and then they Ukraine invaded Belarus as a counter, the Russians could open up a whole new front along the whole northern border of Ukraine, meaning the Ukrainian forces would have to be stretched incredibly thin at that point, especially their strategic reserve would pretty much cease to exist. So there is a decent amount of risk, and it generally would be best for the Ukrainians and the Russians to keep Belarus out of the war, because while the Russians could open up a new front, they would also be stretching their forces thin, and Belarus's military isn't even really designed to defend Belarus. It's more so of a supporting force or a jumping board for the Russians into the rest of Europe. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion, Bob Hudak. And a big thanks to you once again for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Moldy Basement. That's a problem here in Alabama. They put in a $10 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for that $10 support as well. He said, the grind is real, and keep it up, and great coverage.
And thank you so much for the support. The grind is real, and I got to thank you for enjoying our coverage. We try our best, and I hope that tonight was a good night once again, and it has been so far, I think. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, speaking of the grind is real, by the way, I actually got a real coffee grinder to make real coffee with instead of actually using an espresso machine or using cold brew bulk from Walmart. And I'll be honest, real coffee is a game changer for me. Honestly, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to use real coffee beans, and it's definitely much tastier in my opinion as well. So I'm enjoying it, and the grind is real these days, like legitimately. But moving on to our next one here, this one goes to Bobo Vasquez, and he puts in a $10 support. And thank you very much, Bobo, as well. He said, Enforcer, Matt, a 3-day weekend is coming and coming right soon. I will say, Slav Ukraine. And yes, I left a like, and thank you.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Bobo Vasquez. And a 3-day weekend is coming. Is it a 3-day weekend for us? Absolutely not. Like it's maybe it's a Monday again. You know, it's a Monday. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for support, and I hope that a lot of people do have a fun time on their 3-day weekend. I hope that y'all watch the Enforcer channel as much as y'all can, because y'all can bet we'll still be on air. So a big thanks to y'all so much once again. I hope that has addressed that the best I possibly can, and a huge thanks to you once again, Bobo Vasquez, for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I see everybody talking about the coffee grinder situation, by the way. I'll be honest, like I didn't even realize it, but if you use like coffee pods and stuff like that, like there's nothing wrong with that coffee necessarily, but it doesn't have the same zing to it. It's hard to describe it until you actually just have the real coffee. It doesn't have the same zing to it, like the little cartridges of coffee that you put in like a Keurig or something like that. The taste is not as good as real coffee. Like if you actually spend the time to grind the coffee up, like actually from the whole beans fresh and then brew the coffee, like pour over style or something like that, it makes a huge difference. Like the coffee isn't really that bitter tasting, and it tastes a hell of a lot more full, if it makes sense. I guess that's the best way to describe it. I sound like a coffee maker person or whatever they call. What do they call them? A bar keeper or something like that. What do they call it? Yeah, a barista. Yeah. That's what they call it. But it honestly tastes like 10 times better. Like I really liked it. I got the Enforcer to taste the freshly brewed coffee too. He liked it.
Yeah, it was pretty good actually. Like you can actually taste the difference. Like fresh ground beans are actually better. It's like a true qualitative kind of a thing. But honestly, folks, I got to say, coffee is something that's incredibly interesting. And you know, Matthew, the beginning of all coffee culture in the West, as a sense, where did it come from, Matthew? Where did it start?
Turkey?
Vienna, Austria.
I was close.
Very close, actually. It actually was as a result of the Ottomans, to a sense, because they besieged the city. Well, this is actually how the story goes. Whether it's true or not, it's a little hard to say. But when they besieged the city of Vienna, I believe in 1670, they retreated from the area, but when they left behind a whole bunch of coffee that was brought with them as a part of the army. And so the Viennese got a hold of it, and they didn't really know what to do with it, but they started to boil it, grind them and everything. They figured out how to make coffee with them. And then they were like, wow, this stuff is tops. So it became a huge deal in Vienna. And to this day, it's actually, like a lot of these are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, are coffee houses, which are buildings that are specifically made for the selling of coffee. And let me go show you all these Viennese coffee houses. Let me go see. There we go. Let me go get these for y'all really quickly. Here we are. Viennese coffee house culture. These things are actually UNESCO World Heritage Sites and are a cultural icon of Austria.
Interesting. And also, I'll see Jeffrey S saying I got a machine that can do Nespresso pods and K cups. Yeah, I've done both. I've done both of them. I actually got an espresso machine about 7 or 8 months ago, and I used it for like 3 months. And then after that, I never used it again. Just to be straight up honest. There's nothing wrong with it, but Nespresso pods are expensive. Like those add up quick, and they don't really give you much coffee. Like the espresso that it puts out, very small amount of coffee that comes out of that. So I was like, it tastes pretty good. Like I'll admit, for like a quick, easy espresso shot, like it tastes pretty decent. But I would rather just have real coffee. It has a more like liquid to it, obviously, like a full cup of coffee. I just like it better personally.
So let's see here. I saw some people saying that apparently coffee beans are indigenous to the Americas. Apparently they're indigenous to Ethiopia, Yemen, Colombia, and Brazil. So an interesting kind of a spread. Like there actually was coffee beans in Colombia and Brazil, I guess around the area of the Amazon, like the North Amazon, and then also in Ethiopia and Yemen, or this general area, most likely including Eritrea and Djibouti as well. So that's actually incredibly interesting. So, interesting enough, I guess, but generally from what I've heard, coffee caught on primarily because of the Viennese coffee houses, at least for most European cultures that drink coffee, which was not the British, because the British got heavy into tea, and that was their big deal, because that was a huge industry at the time, was tea. And at one point, actually, at the peak of tea consumption, tea and tea leaves made up 10% of the British GDP, I believe by the latter part of the 1700s. Just to give an idea about how huge tea was as far as the economy was concerned. It was very similar to the Dutch VOC in terms of spices. That's what tea was for the British. And the British East India Company, which made the most profits off of their tea sales, because most of the tea was grown in India. But anyways, well, that's still very interesting stuff. And I gotta say, these Viennese coffee houses, they go hard. Every single one of them is incredibly cool, at least the original ones. And they are UNESCO World Heritage Sites because they are that important to Viennese city culture. But anyways.
I didn't have any idea like what a real espresso tasted like until we actually had it before, like from a legit coffee shop. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not really like a huge one into like getting too over the top with that kind of stuff. You know, like all the crazy. I get the fact that there's like coffee enthusiasts out there. They know everything about it and stuff. I've just usually gotten it from like a drive-through or something, so I don't really get it from a real coffee place. But I would say about 4 to 5 months ago, I had it from a legit coffee place. I was like, that actually tastes good. Like, it doesn't taste kind of like overly sugary and stuff like that. It doesn't taste like cigarettes that you're drinking in a cup, like from a drive-through or something. I was like, actually tastes pretty good. The only problem is though, it's not as convenient to go get the legit like real coffee from a local coffee place as it is just to go through a drive-through somewhere. So that's usually why I usually don't do it. But it's convenient to now be able to make it in the house though. Like that's a game changer.
Yeah, it's a real big game changer, actually. And you know, it's very interesting when folks talk about this stuff. It's incredibly interesting what used to drive the world, because coffee was a huge driver, an economic engine back in the day for a lot of countries, kind of like tea was, kind of like spices were. Generally, if you look at anything before the industrial era, or the era of industrialization after James Watt proved the steam engine was a usable source of power, most wealth was generated through the transfer of basic commodities like coffee, spices, tea, and such things like that. That's really where all of the money in the world was made, was off of shipping, transporting, and growing, and then selling any of those products. A very interesting sort of a time, really, when you think about it, man, because it's like the Dutch VOC and the British East India Company, as examples, grew their entire empire, some of the largest companies in the world in history, off of selling spices, which, you know, most people would find in the grocery store these days on like just a single small area of an aisle, or tea, which also is found in a single small area of an aisle. But at one point, just the selling of those commodities alone turned some companies into the largest companies that have ever existed in world history. A really weird kind of a thing to think about from a historical perspective.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, honestly. Kind of a simpler time, actually. I gotta say, it's crazy that everybody's needed coffee for such a long time. I think I'm actually hooked on coffee. Like they say, you know, obviously caffeine's a drug, and it is. Like it's a legit fact, it's a drug. But when I don't have coffee now, like because I've been drinking it for such a long time, I feel out of whack, like really badly these days. So I've got to have it. And honestly, I've got my fix now because I've got the coffee in the house.
Oh, that was the end of the sentence?
Yeah, I was just saying I got my fix now. I got the coffee in the house, man. It's, you know how it is.
Bro, the way you said that though, you're like, man, it's like my fix. I got my coffee in the house, and like it sounded like you were gonna continue. I was like,
yeah, you know, I was trying to sound like a fiend. You know, I was trying to make the fiend sound and stuff like that. I was trying to like, you twitching, scratching, and all that.
Yeah, man, I know how to sound like a fiend. But beyond that, I'd have to say that some people are like, coffee is a caffeine or coffee is a drug. Yeah, sure, but you know, like technically, like, you know, tobacco is a drug, but it's a more acceptable one than normal. I'll be honest with y'all folks, like, you know, like, yes, is caffeine a drug? Sure, like, an argument could be made for that, but really everything that increases dopamine could be considered a drug. I mean, hell, you could extend that to sugar. I had some goofy teacher in school, like, one of those people who were a little bit too smart for their own good, you know, and they didn't know a damn thing, they just copied and mimicked everything they saw, saying, sugar is a drug that should be banned. And I'm like, are you stupid? Like, it's like, are we just gonna make life miserable? No dopamine hits for anything, like a sip of coffee or a cake. You can't have any of this. Like, you just live in damn misery eating leaves. Like, it's like, are you stupid? Like, it's like
Which one said that?
That was that one, you know, with the gray hair, the one, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I used to remember she'd jump on TikTok all the time and like start hitting the TikTok reels like fast as lightning. I'm like, isn't that like the dopamine right there?
Yeah, that person was a dumb idiot. Like honestly, like
Damn.
that person was stupid beyond belief. Because I remember, folks, this person would act like they were the smartest person alive. And one day they said some crap about the Amazon rainforest and how it's being cut down. You know, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go pull up this stuff about the Amazon rainforest. And I pulled it up, and there was a video that was recommended. I was like, oh, I'll click on that. Literally what she said verbatim, and it was published 8 hours ago when I saw it, meaning that it was published that morning before that goofball showed up to school. They watched it, completely copied the talking points from the video, and then repeated it to our class verbatim, like she had researched that all and come up with it as an independent thought. And I was like, now
Yeah, you
that,
better be glad she did because if she didn't, it could have been much worse.
yeah, well, her independent thoughts were damn ridiculous. Like sugar should be banned. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, it's the
Well, she was
stupid.
also the same teacher. I remember the horrors of that teacher right there. She would literally spend every class, and you're referring to the high school history teacher, right?
The social studies, quote unquote, teacher.
Yeah, yeah. She would literally spend every class yapping about something. She would just show up and start yapping. There would be no structure to the lesson or anything, just straight up yapping. And then out of the blue, she'd be like, "Oh, here's your test, by the way." Just on a random day you show up, she'd give you the test. It would have like 50 questions on it, and it'd be about stuff you never even heard about. She'd never even spoken about, taught about, or anything. And you'd be like, "What the hell is this?" So you'd be sitting there like looking at it, like not knowing what the hell you're reading. The questions don't even make any sense. Like not only is it something you weren't taught, but the questions didn't make any sense. And of course, you wouldn't do good on it because you didn't know what was being taught, but she didn't teach it. And then later, she'd blame the entire class for failing. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you, lady? It's like, did you get your kicks this way or something? Like, what's wrong? Like the whole class failing is proof you didn't teach it.
That teacher was legitimately like dumb as bricks.
She was dumb.
Like,
She was dumb. I'll admit.
yeah, like, and also I saw someone say sugar is the worst thing you eat. Yeah, but the thing is, folks, is that like here's how I think of it. Yeah, sure. Like I'll just be honest with folks. Smoking is bad, drinking is bad, eating sugar is bad, drinking coffee not great for you. But you're going to die someday anyways. So why not have a little sugar, you know, or if you want to smoke a little bit or drink a little bit. Like it's your life, you know, do what you want. Like I don't really like this whole social movement these days that everything that could be mildly bad has to be banned or taxed to oblivion. Like it's like if people want to do that, let them do it. It's a free country. Like hell, life sucks for a lot of people. If smoking a cigarette it gets someone through the day, or if eating a cake gets someone through the day, let them do it. Like that's just the way that they cope with living. Living isn't great for a lot of people, so yeah, that might be shortening down their life a little bit, but it's helping them to get through today at least. So let's let them have it. You know, like that's honestly my take
But
on it.
it's really actually worse because it may help them today, but tomorrow it's going to make their life a hell of a lot worse, even after they smoke the cigarette, because then they're going to have to smoke 10 of them to get the same effect. So not only are they throwing their money down the toilet at that point, they're going broke because of their cigarette habit, but also they've gotten so hooked on it that if they don't smoke 10 or 12 of them in one day, then they start going into the withdrawals and stuff like that, and they'll do really bad stuff.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of on them though. You know, it's like the government sits there and says don't smoke them. They're not good for your health. If you smoke them, then you have that problem. It's like you know, then they've got to figure that out. You know, like that's how I look at it. Because it's like you can only do so much. And if someone's gonna smoke a cigarette and then end up getting a cigarette addiction or a nicotine addiction, you know, it's like it is what it is at that point. They've got to figure that out.
You
Because
don't want the government to be your daddy.
no, like no, it's a free country.
Okay.
Like it's like it's a
Hey, you're going to listen to daddy this time, I guess you could say.
no, no, it's a free country.
I'm not either. No, thanks.
It's a free country. People can do what they want. Like the whole sugary drink tax. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I just get it. Like I'll get my 2 cents on this domestic matter because I find these things stupid. If someone wants to drink a soda, let them have a soda. It might be unhealthy for them, but who gives a shit, really? Like, honestly, that's their own life. If they want to get diabetes, they can get diabetes. Like, that's up to them. The government isn't...
Don't get diabetes, folks. It's not good to get diabetes. Don't do it.
It's not, but if they want to, they can get it. Like, who gives a damn? Like, it's their own life. Everyone said, you know, drinking too much sugar or consuming too much sugar can give you diabetes. The warning was issued. The government isn't responsible for stopping you from making bad decisions. They can tell you that something's a bad decision, like, you know, like make sure to know how to use a gun before you buy one, or you know, by the way, smoking can kill you, and eating a lot of sugar can give you diabetes. But if someone wants to then take it upon themselves to do something stupid beyond that, my premise is the government warned them. We went out of our way, we did our due diligence. That's not a good idea. It's probably not best to do that. They did it anyways, and now that's what happens. It's like that's how I look at it.
Do you know why I think they pushed that so hard? The state trying to make people more healthy. I think I have a reason why they actually push it.
To keep people alive longer, so that way they can work longer.
Oh, that's probably part of it, but also another part is they don't want you to have to go figure out the healthcare system is no good at this point, so they want to keep you healthy so you don't have to show up at the hospital.
Yeah, that's probably the case. That's probably the case at this point as well.
We don't want these people to find out what the system's really like at this point. Just make sure they stay healthy. Make sure they're not showing up with any type of lung issues or something. Well, they have to show up to the emergency room and wait there for 3 hours or 4 hours straight, and then wait to see a doctor, and then wait another 2 hours to see another doctor, and then come out with a bill that you can't afford to pay off either because your insurance didn't decide to cover it.
Yeah, that's something that might be an issue. I also saw someone say because the stupid people drive up the cost of everything. No, they don't. They don't drive up the cost of hardly anything. Stupid people are stupid people. If they're stupid and then they end up getting an accident, I'm pretty sure they didn't save up a lot of money to start making it everyone else's problem. They probably just won't be able to afford anything. So then it's their problem. Still, it's their problem. I don't like the idea of some people are stupid, therefore let's start stripping away people's rights. That sounds so stupid when you think about it. It's okay, so I'm going to get punished, a intelligent, reasonable person. I'm going to get punished because there's some idiot out there who can't moderate their soda consumption. It's that's a really goofy kind of a thing when you think about it. It's okay, so I'm going to give up my rights to freedom of expression and my rights to own and possess firearms and my rights against unreasonable searches and seizures because there's idiots out there. Shocker, the world's full of them. But that ought to not stop the people who actually are reasonable and level-headed from going about their life in a free country. I don't like the idea of regulating the shit out of everything as far as people's personal life and what they want to do with it, because there's some stupid idiots out there. They will suffer the consequences.
Well, young man, your rights aren't going to get in the way of progress. You understand me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
that's right.
Sir.
That's exactly what you should say. Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I can do whatever I want.
It gets even more accurate the more you say it.
I can do whatever I want, but no one else can. But anyways, with that,
damn right.
Absolutely, that's right, because it just feels good. And of course, we don't work off of facts; we work off of feelings. That's the big thing, feelings. But anyways, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to Bob Hudak once again, and he puts in a 50 this time. And thank you very much, Bob, for that very generous support tonight, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And Bob said, don't tout coffee beans in the freezer. It ruins the taste. And I did know that, Bob. I did know that, actually. I'm not a coffee connoisseur necessarily when it comes to the fancy stuff, but I did know don't put those in the freezer. If you put anything in the freezer, it zaps it of flavor. That goes for leftover food. That goes for anything. And I learned that because I watch Kitchen Nightmares, and Gordon Ramsay's always yelling about, don't put it in the freezer. It's going to burn. It's going to freezer burn. And so that's where I learned it from. So I figured coffee beans were probably the same thing, so I didn't do it. But thank you very much, Bob. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for support, Bob, and sharing that important fact with us. And I got to say, thank you so much, massively, once again for support, and we will make sure to keep those beans out of the freezer. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to LSA Rocks, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support, and it's good to see you once again. And he put in the 10 without a comment, and thank you very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for support, LSA Rocks, because you rock and the LSA rocks. And long live the Lead Spring Army. A huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to FC Napes, and FC put in a 10 and said, fun fact of the day, the how do you say this? Do you see the word GUI flag?
I don't even know how that's pronounced.
I think it's Russian something, but it's like GUIS. The GUI flag of the Russian Navy was originally used on ships of the Russian Empire as early as the 18th century, 1700s. So the Confed flag was really the GUI flag with stars.
Hold up. Oh, okay. I see what he did. I think it's supposed to be guide on.
Guide on? What is it? Like a guide on? Like a type of flag?
Yeah, like this one. And I got to thank you for support, SC Napes, and hopefully I'm understanding that correctly. But a big thanks to you once again for support and sharing that interesting historical fact with us. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Before we get on to the next one, Star Chasers here said, fact, if you drank 42 cups of coffee in one sitting, the caffeine overdose would kill you. So 41 is the limit. You know, I actually saw this clip. I think you've probably seen it, Matthew, as well, of that one prisoner from, like, prison or jail or whatever that, like, hoarded up all these caffeine packets, and he, like, ate them all at the same time, and he was, like, absolutely tweaking. Have you ever seen that clip?
I haven't seen that, but it's surprising he's still alive.
Bro, he was sitting there, he's like, ah! Like, he was, like, legitimately going crazy, and they were, like, holding him down. Bro, I gotta go pull that up. Hopefully it's, like, copyright-free. Let me check if it is.
It's probably not.
Let's see. Prisoner, caffeine, let's see. Addiction. Is this it? Oh, dang, dude. I can't
I wouldn't show it. You're probably going to get hit with the copyrights on that right there, I tell you. But honestly, though, people underestimate, like, caffeine is dangerous. Like, some people, like, I've seen some people, especially with the energy drinks, like, I knew a couple of people in college, they would get the, like, huge Red Bulls or whatever, like the huge, I think they were, like, C4s or Bang or something like that. It's got, like, wild amounts of caffeine in one of those. I can't remember the name of it. But they would, like, get the big one. They would drink it. Next thing you know, I would see them tossing the trash can. Then I would see them show up later in a different class with another one. I was like, isn't that like a second or third one? It's like, yeah, I gotta have like a couple to get through the day. I was like, how much caffeine does that have in it? And I think one of them said it had like some huge amount of milligrams of caffeine. I was like, bro, you're drinking like what, a few thousand milligrams a day? It's like, you know, that can kill people, right? Like, oh no, it hadn't killed nobody. I think it's perfectly safe. I'm like, I don't think that's safe. But they did it and they lived, but I wouldn't personally drink that much caffeine. That seems extremely dangerous. I think your daily allotment, according to the federal, like, medical officials, is like 400 milligrams a day. I think that's the number. So, like, most people are drinking way above that.
But you know, Matthew, there's actually this crazy thing. Too much of anything can kill you. You know, there's this crazy thing out there. If you drink too much water, you drown. It's kind of nuts, right? It can kill you. Like, it's like, don't drink water, folks. It's dangerous. I'm just kidding, by the way. Do drink water. It's probably the healthiest thing to drink. Unless if you're in India, then it's, like, dangerous. But beyond that...
you know, it's called an LD50, by the way, median lethal dose. Everything has an LD50, and it tells you what is lethal, what dose is required that would end up basically eliminating half the members of a tested population. And they measure everything in that LD50.
You know what? It's very interesting to know. So apparently, I can drink 41 cups of coffee in a day, and I'll be fine. We're gonna have to test that out. I'm not, by the way,
don't test that
ever
out.
gonna do that. Yeah, like, I'm good. One cup of busy or stoke does enough for me every day that I'm perfectly fine with just one. But with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, since I did a little Gordon Ramsay impression, Adam Glegg said, I like Marco, the original Gordon Ramsay. You know Marco Pierre White, which is Gordon Ramsay's mentor? That guy was way more brutal than Gordon Ramsay. Like, he literally, at one point, he made Gordon Ramsay cry. And everybody knows how wild Gordon Ramsay acts these days. He's notorious for acting like that. He literally made Gordon Ramsay cry when he was being an apprentice for Marco. And Marco said that Gordon made himself cry because of something. He said he didn't make him cry. Gordon made himself cry. Like, so that shows you that guy was brutal, like, right there. But honestly, he turned Gordon into a good chef. So maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I'm not really sure what their relationship is these days, but he may have been to a good chef for sure. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Tom Exman, and Tom puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And he said, send BC another 10 for the bandages for me, Matt.
And thank you for support, Tom Exman. And we will make sure to send him our own personal bandages here soon, hopefully. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the Playmaker 1271. He puts in the 10, and he said, tell Russia to ask Japan what happened when they touched our boats.
Oh, better yet, ask Russia about what Japan did to them. Like, because Japan did a biggin on them. They did this thing called Tsushima, the Battle of Tsushima. Let me show you this, because this is something that actually made a lot of people go, wow, Japan be kind of baller. It was this battle right here in 1905. Here's a painting of it. So, let's go through the order of battle. Japan had 4 battleships, 29 cruisers, 4 gunboats, 21 destroyers, 45 torpedo boats, 22 auxiliary vessels. The Russians had 8 battleships, 3 coastal battleships, 9 cruisers, 9 destroyers, and 9 auxiliaries. Now, what happened after the battle? Well, the Japanese lost 117 guys, 583 injured, and 3 torpedo boats sunk. On the other side, the Russians lost 5,000 dead, 803 injured, 6,000 captured, 6 battleships sunk, 1 coastal battleship sunk, 14 other ships were sunk, 2 battleships were captured, 2 coastal battleships were captured, 1 destroyer was captured, and 6 ships were disarmed. So basically, the Japanese literally wiped out the entirety of the Russian fleet that came to fight them at the cost of 3 torpedo boats, 100 dead, and about 600 injured. So they don't even have to ask about what happened when the Japanese touched our boats. They can actually just ask what happened when they touched the Japanese boats. And that's enough in itself. But nevertheless, we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment before we move on to the next one. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we're getting some breaking news this time. I'm seeing some early reporting right now out of North Korea that apparently the leader Kim Jong-un, who's notorious for never really leaving his country and staying there like a hermit, allegedly Kim is going to attend a military parade in Beijing next week alongside Putin and Xi Jinping inside of China, in Beijing, obviously. So that is the new report we're getting. It could be one of the rare times that Kim actually leaves his country and goes over to China to go attend a military parade. I'm not sure if that's the first time he's ever done that, but because it certainly could be, because I've never really seen him leave his country to go to a military parade like that before. So quite interesting right there. At a time when the U.S. is trying to reinitiate contact with Kim Jong-un because he is such a beloved individual. Not really, but you know, they say that. That's what people are telling me. And he's going to go over to meet the enemy, basically. But Enforcer, what say you?
It sounds to me like the meeting of the Axis powers. It's kind of interesting that way. But still, a very interesting breaking news development. And thank you, Matthew, for sharing that with us. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, it's time for us to get on to the next one.
All right, and our next one, also, by the way, Tom X would say he probably goes by train. If he can take the train, he'll go by train, because that train is like it is armored to the max. It's got like an anti-aircraft gun in it. It's wild. Like, I'll admit, North Korea's train is baller, like for the government. Like, they've probably got the wildest like train I've ever seen in my life when it comes to like an armored train. It's actually very impressive, but I'm not sure if we're going to rabbit hole in that or not. Do you want to rabbit hole in that one, Enforcer? I have a feeling since it's on trains, you might do it.
I would, but we have about 20 super chats right now.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so we got to get rolling, actually.
Yeah, so we better get rolling in that case, but we might rabbit hole in that another time. But moving on to our next super chat, this one goes to Clayton Wilkie, who puts in a 7. He said, "Good day, and can you say hello to White Wolf Woman and the LSA members, please, as you are the equal best army with the KISS army who don't fight, rock and roll."
Hey, and I got to thank you for the support, Clayton Wilkie, and a big hello to White Wolf Woman and all of the members of the Lee Spring Army. A big thanks to all of y'all for watching, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel keep on running, Clayton Wilkie. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Snowy, who puts in a 6. And Snowy said, "Extra coffee for you guys." And thank you for that, by the way. They said, "In your assessment with the nukes that Russia has, how many will actually still work?" And take one from the chat in LSA.
I would say
just enough to make a dent. Just enough to make a dent. And all it takes is one to cause hell. And I would say that at least one's going to work. But also, Russia has to ask the question. There's actually 2 questions they got to ask. Are the nukes going to work? That's number 1. And also, are the commanders going to follow the orders to launch the nukes? Because the way they have it set up, the commanders have to actually launch the nukes, which could be a little bit of a hiccup in the chain of command. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. And let's get that live chat.
And the live chat question is going to go to Anthony Wilson, who said, "What do you think our response would be if we were to locate the Russian submarine that NATO is currently looking for in LSA?"
We would just keep an eye on it, but it's more so for fleet security. It's not that we're trying to destroy it or blow it up or anything. We're just having to find it to know what it's doing and if it's still posing an imminent threat to the carrier group. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least as far as a live chat. And big thanks to you, Snowy, for sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep rolling. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from It's GXBX, and they said, "The Enforcer Taco Bell be bussin', no cap, and it's sad that they took away the nacho fries again." LTLSA, and take one from the chat.
It is a shame, honestly. I was wanting some of those, and they got rid of them. I don't know why, but still, a big thanks to you once again, and we will get one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And the one from the chat is going to go to Yeti Spaghetti. "Oh, look, it's the Yeti." And they said, "Would an attack on Chernobyl constitute a nuclear attack?"
Not necessarily in a direct sense. In an indirect sense, yes, but in a direct, literal sense, not really. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 5 from Matt, always learning. And it's true, Matt is always learning. And we're learning every day here. We're smarter every day, as they say. But thank you very much, Matt, for that 5. He said, could this be a real hunt for October, Red October situation? And if they all put to sea, it seems like the film Gone Rogue. What weaponry does the Aquila carry?
The Aquila carries a pretty decent variety of weapons. It can really carry a lot, actually. Let me go and show you really quickly the Aquila class submarine and its weapons. It has 4 533 millimeter torpedoes with 28 torpedoes in reserve. It also carry 4 650 millimeter torpedoes, 12 of those. It also has K-152 NERPAs, which are some additional torpedoes with 40 torpedoes storage in total. They also have some Igla surface-to-air missile launchers fired from the cell, but those would be pretty hard to use. And also, they do have the Granite cruise missiles, which were a huge threat to the U.S. Navy back in the day. But now that's been replaced with the Caliber, which is a cruise missile, or an anti-ship missile in a sense, in this sort of a form. But that's about all they have in the modern day. So it's really anti-ship missiles like the Granite or the Caliber and torpedoes. And that's all the Aquila has access to. At least publicly mentioned. They might have more. But with that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Clayton Wilkie, and Clayton puts in a 5. He said, good day, both enforcers, and can you let us know what happened to the bridge that was attacked last week? And Clayton from Brisbane, QLD Australia, LSA rules.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And the bridge that was attacked last week, I don't know which bridge that was, actually. So unfortunately, I'd have to declare ignorance on that. But I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Clayton's second $5 super chat says, good day again. And do you know why the KIA and wounded dropped from over 1,000 to 850 per day and are running out of men fighting? And Clayton from Australia.
And the least spring army rules. Long live the LSA. And the reason why is most likely that the Russian Federation is running out of fighting men, or that their offensives are lacking a great deal of tempo, which is mostly the fact that the offensive tempo has started to decrease, would be my honest opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Ukraine 1996, who put in a 5, by the way, and said, you guys should see Winter on Fire, and also, can a sub be detected under the aircraft carrier? And also, Ukraine 1996, you're the second person that's told us to watch that. I think Marion Deemer told us to watch that the other day. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but we certainly will. But Enforcer, what say you?
And we will try and watch that. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to give it a shot someday because a lot of people are recommending it to us. And also, I'd have to say that, yes, a submarine can be detected directly under the aircraft carrier, because it actually wouldn't be the aircraft carrier detecting the sub, it would be its strike group detecting it. So they would have the ability to be able to pick that up right under the aircraft carrier. And even if they didn't have the strike group, the aircraft carrier does have in its possession, I believe, a passive sonar array, which are hydrophones, which would be able to pick up the sound of the submarine right under the aircraft carrier. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have one from Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 5. He said, con sonar crazy Ivan. I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to Bubblehead, who experienced submarine warfare during the Cold War, and it's real.
Oh, it's real. Con sonar, torpedo in the water, bearing 230. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for support. Submarine warfare is a really crazy kind of a thing. Submarines in general are just nuts. Like, it's a whole other world being in a submarine. And I do thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, Andrew Honeycutt. And I've got to say, you have a lot of interesting stories. I actually find them to be incredibly neat. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one also goes to Andrew Honeycutt. He puts in another 5 and says, let's see here. Hold on. Let me do a quick little, let's see here. I got to do a little word search. Vacillate. I've never even heard this term before, Andrew. I used to be like pretty good in English, but I've never even heard that one before. I mean, call him a dictionary, but he's really pulling out the Webster's. But Andrew said vacillating foreign policy, which means alternating or wavering between different opinions or actions to be indecisive, is indeed incredibly frustrating. And I don't envy you guys, especially because you have to keep up with it. And LSA all the way. And I'll be honest with you, Andrew, it really makes it frustrating to cover the diplomatic side of things, because obviously when you have such a flip-flopping position, one day you can be analyzing it one way, which seems like the way it's probably going to play out, and then the next day they throw you with a whiplash and do something completely different. It's really hard to make commentary on it that way. It's also hard for world leaders to keep up with it as well, because if we're having a hard time even keeping up with it and we're observing it every single day by the hour, can you imagine a foreign leader, like for example, like the German leader, who's actually busy full day, every single day, every hour of the day, trying to keep up with the changing U.S. position like that changes by the minute? That's got to be so confusing. That's probably why you're seeing a lot of European leaders also get frustrated as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's extremely frustrating. I can't even explain how frustrating it is, because I've, like, myself personally, I know that Matthew is very similar to this. I put a lot of passion and effort into what we do, and I put a lot of effort into analysis. And so I'll try and come up with a likely path of actions that'll be taken. I'll be like, okay, so this is what happened today, so this is what's going to happen in the next 3 days, this is what's going to happen in the next week, and this is highly likely what's happening in the next 2 weeks. And it's always wrong. Like, on the war, we get things right all the time. Like, all these hits that the Ukrainians are conducting, within a year or two, there's going to be a fuel shortage. And within a year or two, there was a fuel shortage. Things like that are very easy to predict, because you can get a lot of data, comb it over, analyze it, and then come up with a clear binary answer to a binary input. With this, it's damn near impossible. It's absolutely impossible. It was very predictable under the last administration. Honestly, because they hardly did anything. Like, they were very, it was like a jellyfish that would get smacked, and it would kind of like respond to whatever smacked it. That was generally how the last administration worked. Very easy to predict what they do. The current one is like a jellyfish on crack that's also been stuck in a bubble, and it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. That's what this thing is, because it's impossible to say what the hell it's doing, where it's going, or what decision it's going to make. Like, and it gets so annoying, because I'll be like, okay, so everything said today, it's all making this picture, this is what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Totally wrong. Next day, 180. And it gets me it just grinds my damn gears, because that's our whole thing. Like, that's one of our big things, is analyzing stuff, and it's never right. Like, it should be correct. It should be correct, but then they'll just do a damn 180. Like the other day, the Russians invaded Ukraine, and they're 100% at fault for the war. Now, it takes two to tango, and now Zelensky's equally responsible. It, totally changed again. Again. It did it again. And it just damn near pisses me off. It just makes me just absolutely worn out with analyzing, because it's like, I'll do all this mental effort to figure out how it works and what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks for some goof to just completely change their mind overnight. It's the most.
It makes my bones tired.
It really does. It makes me worn out, to be entirely honest with y'all, because I'll be like, oh yay, finally something good's gonna happen. Nope, and the next day it's totally different again. I'm like, damn. I'm like, come on. Like, and it's not even like this is some tough shit. Like, the Russians are running circles around him. Like, and he's just like, it's like he's just too stupid to realize it. Like, I don't even know why in the world that would be tough to understand. Like, it's like they're running circles around the goof. He doesn't even realize it. Like, everyone else in the world's literally watching, like, right. Oh, there goes Putin again. He's doing a second loop on him. And I think this time he might mean it. It's like, is you that blind? Like, it's like, he didn't mean it the other 4 times. The other 4 times. It doesn't, like they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on, like, me or whatever. This is the 4th time. What do they even say? They don't even have a saying for that. You should have known by now. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Clayton Welke, who puts in a 5. And Clayton said, good day, LSA members, and challenge all members to press that like button. And thank you very much, Clayton, for that, by the way. We do appreciate it.
And I thank you so much for the support, Clayton. And I got to say, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Plazoth. Also, let's see. How do you say this name, Enforcer? Do you see this one in here? I don't know. How do you say that?
Nap. I think that's how you say it.
Nap, okay, well, huge shout out to Blizzard and also Nap for each putting in a $3 and a $2 support. Also, by the way, a huge shout out to Mark Andre Burnett for putting in a 2 as well. And we appreciate you, Blizzard, Nap, and Mark Andre Burnett very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you all three for the support. It helps this channel to keep it running. I didn't throw in comments, but we're massively appreciative, and it helps us to keep this channel running. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Deadly Splinters, who puts in a 2, who said, I love your channel.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Deadly Splinters. We're very appreciative of that. So a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Eternal Core, who puts in a 2. And they said, run for the hills, Russia fleet mobilizing.
Oh, that's scary. They're going to whip out the rust buckets. Like, oh, God. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Jack. And Jack said, please check out Stadler Trains in Salt Lake City and LSA. And Jack, are you from Salt Lake City? Because Enforcer have been telling me about that place is out there the whole time. I didn't even have a clue. But you've also reminded me of it right now. But tell us more.
Stadler Rail is in Salt Lake City? Holy moly. They got the building in Salt Lake. Hold up. Let me go look at that. Oh my God. They build them there. No way. That is so cool. Let's go look at it. Let's go look at it. Let's go look at it. Look at it. Look. You wouldn't believe where it is, Matthew. It's literally right near the airport. Look at this. Stadler US. There's the tracks into their shop. They build the Stadler units in that shop.
That is crazy, isn't it?
That is so cool. No way. That is insanely neat. Look at that. I think that one's for the Metrolink route that failed, but, you know, it's still pretty cool. That one's for Caltrain. That is so cool. They build them here in Salt Lake. That is the neatest thing ever. And then they load them on the flat cars, and they ship them across America. Wow, that's actually the neatest thing I've seen. This is as cool as Wabtec out in Fort Worth.
Who?
Wabtec. Westinghouse Air Brake Technologies.
Okay.
You don't know about Wabtec?
No.
What? Okay, this is a rabbit hole kind of a thing. Why do they have one in India? Where's the Wabtec Corporation? This is not Wabtec. What the hell's going on?
I'll take your word for it.
No. You cannot take my word. The Wabtec shops. Not in Salt Lake. Not in Salt Lake. We want that one right here. Wabtec Manufacturing. They build all of the rebuilds in America here in that shop, or the one in Erie, Pennsylvania. But anyways, that is so freaking cool. I thank you for supporting and sharing that with us. I actually did not know that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to LSA Sergeant Figman, who puts in it too. He said, LSA hit the like button. That's an order.
Hey, and hit the like button, folks. That is an order. We actually got 4,500 likes tonight. That is a lot of likes. A load of them. And I hope that people continue to hit the like button. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, LSA Sergeant Figman. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jack once again. He puts in a 2 and says, is Everclear today's Russian equivalent to Pervitine?
Yeah, I think so, like me personally. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And we are on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to David Croton, by the way. He threw in a 2 as well and put in the heart emoji right there. And thank you very much, David, for enjoying and loving the content. We do appreciate that very, very much. And David, you are actually going to be the one to take us right into our live chat questions and our Morse code decoders of the night. And tonight we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Kilpioteryx, and Sire. They said the Morse code says for tonight, the U.S. sub is sweating bullets from Russian threats, while we call it posturing, LLT-LSA.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that down on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. It wasn't supposed to be a sub, it was supposed to be a carrier in that Morse code message, but I accidentally put down sop, like a Subway sandwich. But beyond that, I do congratulate y'all for getting that correct, that it was the correct Morse code message, and the Lee Springer Original Core continues to get that right time and time again, without fail, every single day of the week, every single year. And so, a huge shout out to y'all once again. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the live chat questions. Due to time constraints tonight, due to the fact that we are going overtime at the moment, we will be getting 3 live chat questions, and then we'll be rounding out this stream for the night. And so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who said, do you think that the incidents with the U.S. sub and that the incident at Chernobyl are a sign that Putin senses the end is coming near for Russia and he's becoming desperate?
I think so. Those sorts of actions are incredibly threatening and should once again be telling us that the Russians aren't playing nice, which is so weird that that's hard to get. But I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to David Bradshaw. He said, have y'all heard anything about the 3 Americans trying to start a separation of Greenland and Denmark? And I heard someone earlier saying that. I've heard about the story, me personally, but the problem is I don't know who the 3 Americans are. I'll be honest with you. I know 3 Americans that could probably qualify for that. I'm not going to name them off, obviously, but there's some Americans out there that have played a big role in trying to tell Greenland that they should basically leave Denmark's sphere of influence, basically, and just go off on their own. So honestly, we should leave Greenland alone and just make sure that Denmark is well supported to be able to take care of Greenland. It's their territory. Leave it that way. There's really no reason to change it. As long as Denmark is doing the right thing and defending the territory properly, which they are starting to do as we've told them to, then I would say leave it as it is and don't harass Denmark. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Adam McLean. He said, are all of Russia's submarines Soviet era, or did they build some reasonably good technology in the modern era?
Recently good. We don't know if they're good, but there are some that are recent, like the Kilo class, the Belgorod class. I believe the Yasin class is technically somewhat new. But there are submarines that they have built since the Soviet era. But in terms of quality or ability, they're either very limited in number or they're very limited in ability. So they don't really make incredibly good ones anymore. They're all kind of like, if they're good, they're in very, very small numbers, usually just like one at a time, like the Belgrade, or they're numerous, but they're low quality, like the Kilo class electric submarines or diesel electric submarines. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, folks, we reached the end of tonight's stream. What a long stream. It was 3 hours and 36 minutes. That is a lengthy stream. Now, I gotta thank you all so much for watching up until this point. We still have 7,000 people here. Isn't that crazy? It's the end of the stream, and there's still about a whole stadium of people here. And I gotta thank you all so much once again for watching up till this point and being here with us for 3.5 hours of rambling. I hope y'all have enjoyed it greatly. And if y'all have, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like, comment, and everything else in between. I gotta give a huge shout out to the 17.3 thousand people here at the peak and the 163,000 people who have watched this show so far. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and we'll be covering the next 24 hours of the news from around the world tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and if there's a short war video to be made, I, the Enforcer, will be the one making it for y'all tomorrow, if there is enough news. And so with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out to everybody that joined us tonight. A whopping 163,000 people plus have joined us just by the end of the stream tonight, which is insane, by the way. It's almost the viewership we're getting on videos these days, which is wild that many people joined the stream tonight and chose us to get the news. And we appreciate that very much and are honored. And we hope you will all join us again tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Nightly War News stream, and also midday for a short war video tomorrow if there is enough news to cover. But in that case, folks, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.